Hey everybody, how's it
Good
going?
evening.
Hey now.
Hey, we are joined this week by Matt from Attract Mode. Um, thank you for joining us. We've been talking about this for a little while, actually.
Thanks for having me. First time caller, long time listener. Yes, this has been something we've talked about for quite a bit, and now is the time. A crazy time in reality, a crazy time in virtual reality, a crazy time in video games. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. For people that don't know, would you like to give them an idea of what Attract Mode is?
I guess Attract Mode could be best described as a video game culture collective. What does that mean? I don't really know myself, but essentially, there's a lot of people involved in video games. There's a lot of people in Attract Mode which are involved in video games in various different ways. There's journalists, there's filmmakers. You guys had Two Player Productions on a couple weeks ago, and they're part of proud members of Attract Mode, and we have some game makers as well.
Hang on one second. People are. Uh-oh, is there something going on with the audio?
What happened?
I don't know. People are saying
Did it
like.
drop out all of a sudden?
No, they're saying that it sounds like we are. The audio is jacked up.
Should I adjust?
No. It has nothing to do with yours because it's audio is
Great,
terrible.
it's already ruined.
I mean, maybe it's YouTube.
I don't know.
What's your stream health look like?
On my end, I'm kind of off sync, but I'm assuming that's how it normally works.
It might be. Maybe it's just an issue with OBS. Let me stop it and start it again. Sorry, everybody.
No worries.
Well, let's see if it sounds okay now because my webcam is like not working. But all right, so there's like no image of me on the
There's
screen,
no you.
but it sounds better. But I'm not there. Let me see if I can do a little something here. Oh, we can have that view that nobody is in here. Okay, that fixed the audio.
Other view.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, do you want to like re-explain what Attract Mode is, and I'm gonna try and fix my video.
Yeah. Where'd Corey go? Anyways, yeah. So Attract Mode is a video game culture collective. There's a bunch of people in it who are involved in video games, various capacities. I've been involved in video games to a lot of different capacities. I've made games. I've mostly written about games. And Attract Mode's been around for a while. It started off as a store. We sold video game culture goods like zines and apparel and movies and stuff like that. It's I run a blog. It's just it's blog.attractmode.de. It's a Danish website because it sounds cool. So I run a blog. I collect, I compile video game culture. What does that mean? That's a fancy way of saying I go to Tumblr a lot and I find cool stuff about video games, and I give it to people who are interested in this stuff, but like they don't know where to go. I'm not doing a real good job of explaining this, even though this is take two.
No, I think it makes sense, more or less.
And also, we do video game art-related shows. We did a couple art shows with a Fan Gamer. I'm sure you two are familiar with those fine folk.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done some stuff with TCAF, a Toronto Comics Arts Festival. So I get a lot of cartoonists, get a lot of cool, funky artist people to produce shirts and prints. And that's pretty much the long and the short of it. I mean, I'll do a better job of explaining as the evening progresses.
No. I think I get it.
Okay, awesome.
I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna try something a little crazy.
A little crazy?
No, man, what is going on? I wonder. It's just an OBS problem. We can have this shot of the room.
It's Corey tonight.
Yeah. I kind of had a problem like this earlier, but I wonder if it's just something to do with my my
What happens
driver.
if you unplug and plug your webcam back in? I mean, you'll probably lose it for sure then, but I mean, you've already lost it.
All right.
Yeah.
So Corey, in your back.
Oh.
Okay.
We might be back in business.
All right.
Whoop.
Hey, it's a room. Let's read some of the live chat. Hey, it's a room. Update. Ha 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 ha.
So I asked Matt like what he wanted us to stream tonight, and he was like, "How about some Sega games?" And there's a lot of people asking last week if we could do some Sega games, and I thought that'd be a good
There you go.
good way to do it.
Why not? Why not?
What?
All right.
Are you resizing the window?
Yeah. Hey, whatever, you know.
No, I mean I'm not hating. It's
So
very yes.
So kind of my first experience with Attract Mode is when you posted you're the first person to find and post our Wind Waker How to Beat video.
Oh well, that's quite an honor to be the first to. I mean, you know that now you know, but I have a lot of different interests, and the whole thing, not to bring it back to Attract Mode, is I try to frame video games in a way that will be understandable to people who aren't necessarily video game people, if that makes sense. So, I got a lot of friends, they know about video games, they like video games, but they don't go to Kotaku every 15 minutes like some of us do. So I like when video games kind of bleed into other things that I like old VHS cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a big fan of cable access and old, TV type stuff. And I really enjoyed your latest video about video game videos, etc. like that. So the fake Wind Waker tip tape was totally up my alley, and I was like, oh my god! And awesome job on that.
Yeah, I think it was like our 4th video or something like that.
It's so long ago now. It's crazy to think about it.
That was our first video that like kind of exploded in a way. And even now looking back at it, I mean, like the views on it are like not like super crazy impressive or anything, but for having just started, like to have a success like that right out the gate. And like Corey says, first person to post it, that got on Kotaku and I think a few other places too. So that was kind of a crazy one.
I'm happy to be one of the first individuals to help spread the word of the mighty My Life in Gaming empire.
The empire.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes without saying that you guys have gone far in a very short amount of time, and My Life in Gaming is now the resource when it comes to trying to figure out how to get maximum. I mean, what do you guys do? I don't need to re-explain all this. But not long after, Corey, you gave me all this valuable information in terms of image quality of Wii Virtual Console games. Remember that whole back and forth a couple of years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty. Because the thing is, I mean, kind of. I'd like to think we are kind of in the same boat where we have all this knowledge about video games, and people have questions, and there's answers out there, but a lot of it's not really accessible. And sometimes you just need someone who just kind of can explain it in a very accessible, quote unquote, dumb guy fashion. Where, oh, I get it now. All right,
Well, and the thing is, I think we see ourselves as that dumb guy because I'm looking at all this complicated information, and I'm like, okay, I want to understand this. How do I dumb it down for myself?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you guys have been super invaluable, and I'm not just saying this, but as time has gone on, I know a lot of people who are hardcore video game, retro game enthusiasts. When I tell them I'm friends with the My Life in Gaming crew, they're like, really? Like they're really impressed. So it's kind of surreal.
Stars. Yes, exactly. So
so I'm gonna go ahead and just start the games.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning with Alien Soldier tonight.
So explain to me. You were talking about something funky about a key something or other.
Oh yes. So this is one of the few region locked games on the Genesis. Like it came out in PAL territories and in Japan, but never in the US. And it's region protected. So I'm playing it on an EverDrive because I don't own it. It's actually a very expensive game, and I couldn't get the Mega Key on my EverDrive to recognize it, and it's because if you have a 32X attached, the Mega Key will not work. So I had to find a workaround. I found a Game Genie code to make it work.
I mean, this this looks pretty awesome. This is like right up my alley.
Yeah, it's Treasure, and
it is. Okay, I
yes.
did not know it was Treasure. I mean, it looks Gunstar, Contra, all that good stuff that I like.
So I have a question for both of you individuals. I think we're in the same age group, right? Like how old are you?
Generally, I'm 38.
32.
Okay, so I'm turning 40 in a couple weeks. So I'm assuming you two during your high school that phase in life was the 16-bit war.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for me it was like I guess 16-bit was more like middle school for me. Like okay, I was actually pretty stubborn about like I was like, my Nintendo's good enough, for a long time. So I didn't get into 16-bit until '94. So I was kind of late getting into that. But I in middle school was kind of my like the 16-bit war era, and it's a bit embarrassing for me to think back on it. But I kind of hated on old Sega.
All right, so that was my question. Like, which side of the fence did you? First off, it's middle school. Like, is anyone really proud of middle school? Or so it's like, who cares?
I try to forget.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I was definitely like hardcore on the Nintendo side because I was like, who's this Sega that thinks they're all cool and crap? Like, I'm not. Are you like an executive? Like, are you like, oh my god, these Sega retrobates and such like that? So I'm thinking more along the lines of, I'm not cool, so why would I play the cool thing? I'm going to stick with dorky Nintendo.
Were there a lot of people in school? Was it more Sega, more Nintendo? Was it kind of 50-50? It's hard to say because I was kind of one of those kids that got riled up about it. So I think a lot of it was people just kind of saying Sega just to get at me, Wow. Okay. All right.
Like I say, it was kind of an embarrassing time in my life that I was actually like so against a video game console manufacturer.
Well, but, again, all I can say is that type of attitude is acceptable in middle school, whereas a lot of people, unfortunately, still act like that in their.
Yeah, I definitely got over it. I realized that, I mean, Nintendo has been like the big constant for me. I mean, I've never given Nintendo up. It's always like, I know I have to have a Nintendo console because, I mean, there's stuff that's going to be on it that I just cannot live without playing. I eventually realized like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that I want to play on these other systems. And, and now I've got all the Sega systems and I've got all the PlayStation systems, and I've got Xbox and Xbox 360. Don't have anything to play Xbox One on yet, but I plan to, Yeah. So, but yeah, it was. I mean, for me, like high school was like N64.
I might lower the difficulty level on this. It's like really hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. No, it's sorry to make you.
No, it's all right. It's fine, but. I think I looked at the options screen, and there was only two options. It was super easy and super hard for the difficulty levels. So I might switch it to super easy.
So wait, you're on super hard right now?
I think so. I think
that's it.
Because it's super hard.
I really hate it when difficulty settings are marked that way. It's like so misleading.
So, Troy, I grew up in Washington State, which is
Okay.
Nintendo country.
Yeah, yeah.
So, growing up, my first console was actually, I remember my dad taking me to Toys R Us, and, Nintendo was there, full force. You had the Sega Master System, who cares? And my dad asked me, so what video game console do you want? And I wanted an Atari 7800 because I was so into my first favorite video game was from the arcade. It was Exvius. And then I also, I liked shooters. I liked shmups. So at the time, Exvius and Galaga would also eventually come up to Nintendo. But at that point, like 1987, 1986, perhaps it was that early, I got a 7800. And I eventually got a Nintendo. So, but like, I don't have this really strong, I love Nintendo, but when it came to the 16-bit wars, the 16-bit era, I got the Genesis first, but then I got a Super Nintendo not long after. So I found myself kind of like an ambassador or a UN representative, where one person would someone would go, "Oh, Genesis sucks," and I'm like, "Okay, okay.
Like,
Just so you know, there are some good games." And conversely, if a Sega person, because in my school it seemed to be split 50-50, like certain people, the people who love the blood and guts and gores, and also sports, they love the Genesis, but the Nintendo fans, they love the Mario and all that. So when the Genesis people would rag on Nintendo, like, hey, let's not go crazy now. Star Fox is really good.
Yeah, well, I think Corey sort of found himself in a somewhat similar position because, I mean, you kind of consider yourself a Sega kid, but then once you got the Super Nintendo, you didn't play a lot more Genesis that generation.
I mean, I did, but not nearly as much. I mean, Super Nintendo was definitely my priority after a certain point. Is that Street Fighter 2? Man, this boss is just like flailing all over the place, and
but I guess the reason why I'm a big fan of the underdog, and the games that the list that I passed along, Corey, I think are just the indicative, like, everyone craps on the Genesis and is like, oh, I can't do this, it can't do scrolling, it can't do rotation, and I'm like, all right, there are some games where, like, programmers, they need, I think, especially
with Treasure, specifically Treasure, and and Konami, were the ones that like really seem to push the Genesis.
I think the programmers knew that, like, listen, we have kind of an uphill battle to fight, so we're gonna have to really make everyone go wowzas, and you get games of this caliber. Obviously, not every Genesis game's good.
It's just that they had to do it through the through programming instead of having the hardware to do it.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about this. Where, like, I like games now, the modern HD stuff, but it's like, when people compare different versions of, like, an Xbox One game to a PS4 game, like, oh, the V-Sync's off, and and I'm like, okay, this isn't as exciting as which is better, the Genesis version of Street Fighter 2 or the SNES version, where there's more clearly defined differences, but it's more excusable deficiencies, where I'm like, okay, you know what, etc. So,
it's definitely. I mean, they were really. I mean, basically completely different games. I mean, they were the same game, but I mean, from a technical level, they have so much less in common.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, this is a hard game. Now,
I'm kind of getting like I have to use that dash you're invincible. It seems like when you use the dash. I'm not sure if it's unlimited continues. Do you have any idea if there's limited continues?
I mean, you're on the first level, so it doesn't really matter.
That's true.
True.
But yeah, my Genesis experience, I really didn't know a lot of people with the Genesis. Like, I mean, I knew some people. Like, I didn't know that many people who were like heavy into games in school. I went to a fairly small school, so I mean, there just wasn't a large sample size, I guess. And most of my gaming friends, didn't even go to the same school. So, and those people, largely had Nintendo stuff. It's actually interesting because like I didn't have a ton of Sega exposure until the Dreamcast because you know, there were a few people I knew with Sega systems, but I either didn't go to their house much or I just didn't know them that well. I didn't know anyone with a Saturn. And but then all of a sudden, like Dreamcast comes around, and like all these people I know get Dreamcast. So I played like a fair bit of Dreamcast.
You've had a Dreamcast.
Heyday. No, I didn't have a Dreamcast.
Well, you got one from. I mean, you've had one in your possession
for longer than any other Sega system. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the Genesis, I didn't have a lot. I remember seeing like a little Sega CD or Sonic CD at someone's house, and a little whichever one was the Mickey game that had like the first black and white level.
Mickey
Oh
Mouse
yeah. So I remember seeing that at a friend's house. Outside of that, like I remember playing like Sonic 3 at a store kiosk, but like just not a lot of experience. I probably had more exposure to Game Gear, oddly enough, than Genesis. Yeah, and so I didn't have a lot of exposure to Genesis games until Sega went third party, and then you start getting stuff like Sonic Adventure 2 on the GameCube, and then you'd get like the Sonic's Mega Collection or whatever the heck it was called, and so that was kind of my first exposure, and then the doors kind of got a lot more wide open when Virtual Console came about, but I didn't want to really bother. Like my big thing was I wanted to play Contra Hardcore and Castlevania Bloodlines because those were like the two lost like Contra and Castlevania games to me, because I mean, a big fan of both series, and they never got a digital release.
Remains a mystery why they never did.
Yeah, and I wanted to play them so bad. And I was like, well, that's like the reason I want to own an actual Genesis. But I never got around to it for a long time because I'm like, man, like I love my NES, but do I really want to have to deal with a second system that can't do better than composite? And not that it has to do with the graphics, but it's just like, that was kind of my excuse, I guess. And, but then, like, I mean, I had no idea at the time that Genesis could do RGB and all that stuff. So when I got into the whole RGB thing, I'm like, oh, well, it's no fuss to get a Genesis. So I got a Genesis. I'm glad I did at the time, because now, like, I mean, Hardcore and Bloodlines were already not cheap, and now they're a lot more expensive. So I got in at the right time, and that was probably like 4 years ago. And
I wish there's a way to quickly change your weapons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge Genesis collection, but I've been surprised that I've found more things on it to like than I expected. Like I had no idea that like Rocket Knight Adventures was just going to blow me away like it did. Like that game is so good.
Have you ever, it was one of my favorite Genesis games, and it was super obscure, but now people are, I guess, finding out about it. Ever heard of a game called Ranger X?
Oh yeah. That was one of the first ones that really uses the 6-button controller.
6-button, yes, yeah, totally. It's it's basically a mech game. First off, it's like a system pusher. Like it has crazy graphics, wonderful music. But so you're a mech, but you're also riding like a mechanical skateboard. It's almost like a Segway, and you control the Segway, the mechanical skateboard, via the other, because it's a 6-button controller game, so you can use the extra buttons to control back and forth, and you get to recharge weapons via sunlight. It's totally nuts. But it's you mentioned Saturn, so much as I got the Genesis fairly early, when, well, relatively speaking, when Sonic 1 was a thing. The Saturn was my high school graduation present.
Oh.
So I was legit the only person who had a Saturn for quite a while. And then immediately I went to college and I got a Saturn. I eventually got an N64. I eventually got a PlayStation. So I was like the video game guy in college. So people would come to my dorm room and play video games. Then, I got the Dreamcast on day one. It's like the only time I got a day one system.
That was the first time I got a day one system.
Yeah. And I was living, after around that time, I got my first apartment after, graduating from college. And I had my Saturn and my Dreamcast side by side next to each other in my bedroom in my apartment. And I remember, I came home and my roommate was there and he told me, so we've been robbed. Someone broke into the apartment and stole stuff. And they kicked through like an idiot. I had my air conditioning unit propped inside my bedroom window, which had a fire escape attached to it. So people could just, could go into the fire escape, and they just kicked in, literally kicked in the air conditioner. And guess what they stole? They stole my goddamn Saturn. Even
what
though
is that? Okay.
It's right next to the Dreamcast, which just came out. It's super popular. People know about it. They stole. Not only was it just my high school graduation present, it was also modded at the time. Which was not easy to replicate.
Uncommon, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I thank God there wasn't Radiant Silvergun inside, so they stole.
So they didn't take any games, just the system.
They just took the system. Also, the person rummaged through the apartment. My roommate had gotten a DVD player, and this is 1999 when DVD players were $300. They were So whoever stole it, which I have a theory I'll get into a second. They took my Saturn, my high school diploma, and a really nice jacket. It was getting kind of cold that time of year, so. Also, at that point, me and my roommate, what you do when you graduate from college, you have a roommate and you do dumb things. And we were addicted to the show Cops. And we would watch Cops, and there'd be the episode of Cops in Jersey City. Ooh, I wonder, we'd watch the Jersey City episode. So when I asked my roommate, oh, did the sheriff from the Cops episode, Jersey City episode of Cops, did he show up? No, but they did Dust for Prince on your Super Nintendo, and lo and behold, my SNES had a bunch of remnants of, Anyways, not the most exciting ending to a story, but so I got my Saturn stolen, but I'm pretty sure it was someone who was stalking me in college, because there was this really crazy guy. Once he found out I had a Saturn, he always wanted to play Saturn games with me, and he'd come to my dorm room 3 a.m, knock knock, hey man, let's play some, Sailor Moon R. I'm like, dude, it's 3:30 in the morning. I got class in the morning. Yeah, he got really pissed off. So, Sorry, I had to throw in my one interesting Sega Saturn story.
Yeah, but it's so funny because back at that time, absolutely. Well, I shouldn't say absolutely. No one cared about Saturn, but now, at the time, Saturn games probably have no value. I would assume.
More or less, yeah.
But now, Saturn's one of the most expensive systems to get games for. My cousin's husband actually has a pretty similar story about his TurboGrafx 16. It was stolen on either move out day from college one year. Yeah, I mean, he had all the good games for it and everything, and it's just and I every once in a while I think back to that, I'm like, man, all those games would be mine now. Because I ended up with their Dreamcast, I ended up with some of their other game stuff. They totally would have given it to me.
Well, so I have these crazy hardcore collector type friends, I'm sure you two do, and they're trying to buy old games for whatever systems, complete packaging and all that jazz. So again, when I was in college, the Saturn was my favorite system, so I bought a lot of the games. But
What?
I lived in a tiny dorm room, so I had to get rid of whatever superfluous stuff that I could, which included the cases for all my Sega Saturn games. So they came in these gigantic.
Yeah, they're not fun.
Yeah, so I put all the games in a CD wallet. So I have like Panzer Dragoon Saga, which complete is what, like $1 billion.
Approximately.
Yeah, and I tell people like, oh, I threw away the manual, I threw away the case, and like these crazy collector type friends of mine, who they're like,
they aren't your friends anymore.
No, well, as an aside, a couple years ago, I bought a sealed copy of. Hopefully, he's watching this. My friend Jason. I bought a sealed copy of DuckTales for the Game Boy, and I opened it, and he's like, "Why the hell did you break the seal?" I'm like, "I bought it to play the game." Sorry.
Yeah, I would have no remorse about that myself.
Yeah.
Like, games are, I respect, sealed in box culture if that's your thing, but games are meant to be open for me. Like, if I buy like a modern game that I don't have time to play right away, and maybe I end up ultimately not having time to play for years, like. Sometimes out of laziness, I'll put it on my shelf sealed. But then, like, I don't know. I just I want to open it.
Yeah, sometimes I just feel like I get in the mood for just like opening all the shrink wrap of games that I haven't done it with yet.
Yeah, like I mean, especially like for a system like PS4, for example, where it installs the full game on the system. Like, I just want my complete collection to be on my PS4 dashboard. Like, I just want it there. I'm not like thinking like, oh well, what if I never play this game and it's gonna be worth something someday? Like, I don't have really any interest in having, sealed games or anything like that. They are definitely to be played for me. Like, I wouldn't pay the price to get a sealed retro game now, because I could get what I want for cheaper, which is an open game to play. But like when it comes to like games that came in cases, I gotta have that in the case. If the manual is the cover, like on a PlayStation game or a Saturn game or something, I gotta have the manual. But if it's like a DVD style case where the manual's just inside, I mean, manual is nice, but I mean, if I run across it for the right price without a manual, I can take it like that. Genesis Master System, I do want to have the case just because they're really nice. I have made exceptions though. But like for things like, NES, Game Boy, Super Nintendo, N64, all that, it's just like, I'd rather pay less money and just get the cartridge, because I put it on my shelf to look all pretty, but ultimately I am buying it to play it.
Well, so I have severe, I think it goes without saying, anyone who collects stuff, I have severe OCD. So I have in my mind a very specific set of rules and systems. So, it's only, at least in my mind, it's only collecting is only makes sense if there's a certain logic and a consistency to it. So in terms of like collecting Genesis games, which I don't own any Genesis games anymore, I sold them ages ago. But if I was to get back in, I wouldn't, just because, okay, so at one point Genesis games came in these like this kind of unique plasticky clamshell type deal. But then, like, they went to like cardboard boxes.
Boxes,
man,
it's like fuck that. Okay, I'm sorry. Can I curse? I'm like, as soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. I'm out of here. Like, I don't care anymore. So.
Yeah, it was. It's funny because I really hate the Genesis cardboard boxes. It was such a disappointment to me when they happened. And I don't really care how they did it. It's just that they did it with Phantasy Star 4.
Yes.
Which is the one cardboard box game I even own.
Well, Sonic and Knuckles also had the
that's true.
fun.
I kind of hate Sonic and Knuckles, but that's a conversation for another.
Oh man.
Anyways, yeah.
But I have though, like I haven't like done anything pretty with it yet, but I bought a when I was visiting Corey back in October, and I got this crazy deal on a Sega CD. I got it for $60.
Okay.
And it came with the Genesis that I didn't need, but you know the Sega CD itself was in great shape. I got it for $60. Guess what was inside? Copy of Soul Star.
Oh, okay. Right.
Which I hadn't heard.
Which
of
is
at
a
the time,
if you're not familiar, it's pretty pricey game.
Yeah.
And I tested it. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to want this, but I tested it. I'm like, pretty good. Yeah, it's, you know, like disc only though, like it's probably like $80, but complete's like probably like what, $120 at least. And
that's the core produced. It's like a forward scrolling.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah. It's kind of Star Foxy.
Yeah. It's very pretty.
Yeah, it's cool. It has some cool effects, and it definitely seems like a lot of fun. I haven't played through it yet, but you know, I'm glad I ended up with it. But then here comes this conundrum. I'm like, oh no, this is my first disc only CD game. But I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna say no if it's a good game that I ended up with for free.
Yeah.
And then Corey kind of explained to me that, well, some Sega CD games didn't come in those Saturn-style jewel cases.
Yeah.
They came in a cardboard box, which is a clear jewel case inside.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of like, well, maybe I can make myself okay if I circuitously think about, well, you know, some Sega CD games just came in clear jewel cases. So if I buy disc-only Sega CD games, I can save money and just put them in clear jewel cases. And even if they came in a bigger case, I can say it's sort of official.
So you suffer from the same crazy person logic of collecting video games, where you're literally just having a conversation with yourself and like, well, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm like, who are you talking to?
Yeah, I mean, I like to have, you know, sort of the stock presentation of the game. You know, I mean, cartridges are fine on their own, but when it comes to like discs and portable, you know, DS, 3DS, PSP, that kind of stuff, it's like, oh, I just gotta have it in the case. But I'm seeing how I feel about making an exception for Sega CD, and since I am not a fan really of those long boxes, you know, maybe I'll just kind of set. I mean, how many Saturn games do I have? I've only got frickin' 5 Saturn games. So I mean, maybe I'll just put those boxes in the closet or something, and maybe I'll put those in jewel cases too. I you know, and make like I'd like to make like, you know, nice, like, you know, spines and covers and stuff for them so they look nice. But you know, maybe, you know, again, Saturn is expensive. Maybe I can save some money on some games I'd like to have just by getting the disc only, you know. So I'm kind of in a phase of transition with that stuff. I got PC Engine and PC Engine CD not long ago. I don't have any games. Well, I sort of have a game for it, but I don't know if I'm counting it yet. It just kind of came free with actually 2 of them came for free with my son. I got a really good deal on it. It even include like the original receipt, which I just think is the coolest thing.
Oh.
I've got this 1990 PC Engine CD receipt from some random store in rural Japan.
Oh.
See, I can't do the loose ones. I can't do the loose PC Engine games or PC Engine and TurboGrafx because you started that way. So it's like, all right.
I started that like that was a conscious decision that I'm like, okay, I am buying Hue card only because 1, I'll save money, and 2, I think the cards look really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think almost, I feel like, especially for the Japanese games, like the artwork, I almost feels like stands out more on the cards than they do on the case. Let me get my little mini PC Engine collection.
Oh boy.
I'm really proud of how it looks. I think it looks cool.
I will admit, like, a buddy of mine, my buddy Nick, he had essentially a PC Engine party a while ago, and he has some PC Engines arranged in his apartment, and he had this nice little stack of PC Engine cue cards that you could just kind of shuffle around, and it's a lot more enticing than just, I don't know. It's certainly unique. So I'm a definite fan.
I like kind of the accessibility of it. You don't have to open it; you just it's there.
Exactly.
Now, I don't know if you saw our episode with Game Dave where we showed.
I did, yes.
The cases for or the racks for Game Boy games. Well, I bought the same thing for my cue cards. So. I've got them in these little, sleeves, but I feel like that's a fun way to present PC Engine games. I can look at like the artwork. Like I love I've only got 2 TurboGrafx games. I've got Dragon's Curse, which is not cheap, and again savings, and Ninja Spirit, which is kind of a rare case of the US version being cheaper than the Japanese version. But I mean, the Japanese games just have such cool label art. Like I really love like Bomberman 93 is like so colorful, and then Legend of Valkyrie is pretty awesome. So I mean, just so I feel like, I mean, I could surprise myself, but I'm kind of spacing these out. I can arrange it in all sorts of ways, but I'm thinking surely I'm never going to buy enough PC Engine / TurboGrafx games to fill up this entire little rack. But
speaking of PC Engine games, yeah, I know you're a big Bithead 1000 fan.
Yes. Oh my God, I can't believe we're talking about Bithead 1000. Yes. No, it's funny. Real quick, just so you know, I'm in the process of moving, so I spent the past 2 hours trying to like recreate my background, but I was gonna do a weird Bithead 1000 reference, which only one friend would probably get, or 3 people now, including you two, where I was just gonna have one thing in the shelf in the background, because as you know, Bithead has like this game shelf, and he has like one damn thing in the background, which is stark contrast to the wall of Super Nintendo carts that most people have. But yes, about Bithead 1000, my personal favorite angry video game nerd. What about him? I could talk about him all day.
He is really funny. If anybody in the chat has never seen his stuff, you should definitely watch it. What is the name? It's like ever since I watched it, I cannot remember what it is. What was the name of his little pulley thing? There was like the RoboCop reference.
Oh, geez, it's like some Grabtron. I mean, I wrote about it on a track mode. I could try to find it real quick.
You should, because I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. Bithead 1000.
Oh wow, you can change the speed in the pause menu. You can make it. I'm kind of getting the hang of this a little bit.
Are you kind of feeling into it?
Yeah, I'm definitely into it. I mean, all it is just like it's bosses. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
That's kind of the treasure way.
Yeah. But this is like even more so than.
It became like the Contra way.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
But it's this really funny name for his pulley system.
Yeah. Oh my God, why am I having a hard time finding this? Tumblr does not have exactly the best search algorithm, unfortunately. So, actually, I think I might be close. But okay, so while I'm talking about that, if you go to a track mode right now, if you go to the blog, and you go to 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wrote about a fashion line in Japan where, you've probably seen a lot of clothing that taps into Famicom nostalgia. And then more recently, there's, stuff that talks about Sega aesthetics. But there's a clothing line called Thunderfox. And try, you will be interested in this.
Okay.
They have... Like,
it's called Thunderfox?
A Thunderbox.
Oh, Thunderbox. I was going to wait, it's like after the title game?
They have... And Thunderfox is a clothing label, and they have fashion pins that look like cue cards.
Ha!
think you might be interested in that. So, Bithead 1000. I'm just gonna go to his YouTube channel to find.
I could not find it when I was looking, because I just showed Try when he was here the other day.
Yeah. It's an older video.
Yeah.
That guy's been around for like 6 years, and it's like
longer than that. I think he's been. I mean, he was doing like garage sailing videos before it was even a thing.
Like, can you describe why his garage sale videos are so good? I mean, I can, but
Well, I think he's just really good at just like talking.
Yes.
He speaks very slowly and very deliberately all the time.
Well, not only that, but he's like a real kind of like a vaguely kind of he's a construction worker by trade, I believe.
Right.
So it's, he doesn't seem like your typical. He's almost bro-ish in terms of like.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. It's Ed 2.0 Clothesline. That's the name.
That's it.
He creates all these wacky contraptions. He creates his sets. He has like a. He built in his shed in Long Island. He built a shed for all his like video game stuff. So people who aren't aware of this. So he would go to garage sales, and he would film himself trying to buy whatever random games, and then he would like give commentary afterwards. Sometimes he'd film himself in a car, angrily saying, "There's just nothing out there. It used to be such, it was a paradise, and now you come up and there's an old lady like." He would go, "Oh, do you have any video games?" Like, "I think we have a Nintendo." And now they're like, "I think we have
He always does these voices with his like accent.
Now they know all the names. They know that it's valuable. So he does his whole swagger of playing dumb, and he shows disinterest. And then the old lady will sell him a box full of Nintendo games. Then he shows it to the camera. He's all exasperated, and he's like, "All right, well, look, another copy of Tetris." But as you know already, he sold all of those, and he made like what, $9,000, and he spent all of it on PC Engine games. And he puts it in this like drug dealer-esque metallic suitcase.
Yeah.
And he's so angry. But when he talks about these shooters, like, there's such genuine love and affection for it. It's, his video about when, like, he was talking about a coworker, and he's like, "Oh, I went to the gym," and he's like, "Oh, were you working out?" Like,
that's the video Corey showed me.
Yeah.
I went to the Pokemon gym. It's like, "Do you play Pokemon Go?" Like, "No, I play PC Engine Stay," and he drinks his coffee like, "Oh my god, I gotta meet this guy." Anyways.
But he does that voice.
Oh.
If you haven't seen his stuff,
Really
if his most recent stuff, if you're very sensitive about Nintendo, probably don't watch it, I guess.
Oh,
He really doesn't. Does not like modern Nintendo very much.
well, the thing I've always been kind of bothered by video game fans in general, but I'll be honest, Nintendo fans are sometimes more guilty of this than others. There's a sense of, I hate to use the E word, entitlement. Like, "Oh, I'm the one that made Nintendo what it is," and I'm like, I roll my eyes. But when Bithead 1000 does it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, he's got a point there. Okay, all right, convincing argument. All right, Sal." But
If I die in this, I'm gonna switch games.
all right.
Can you do save states on the Genesis EverDrive?
I can, but not without the 32 with the 32X installed.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It limits a lot of stuff.
Huh? Why?
So when my first real job outside of college, I actually got a job at Ubisoft.
Oh, really?
And I was a game designer for them. And I was making decent money, and I decided to fulfill a lifelong, well, up to that point, a 6-year-long dream of, I'm going to rebuy my Genesis, which I sold before I went to college, and I'm going to get a 32X, like, finally. So, and, I don't know, I was going to ask you guys, how many 32Xs did you go through before you found one that worked? Because
I've only had the one that I have.
I bought one.
You got that as a kid, I assume, right?
The 32X I have?
Yeah.
No. I got that actually when I worked at Electronics Boutique. I think somebody traded and I may have paid 50 cents for it. It's expensive. They're expensive now.
So is it tough to find a working one, or is it a cable issue, or?
I think they are actually difficult to find working operational.
Really?
So
I'm gonna switch games. I'll be back.
I ended up getting 3 32Xs. Thankfully, at the time, they were relatively cheap. They were brand new, still in box. I bought them for like $10 each. But the third one was like, oh my God, this isn't working. What is going on here? And, this is the internet circa 2000. Information is not as accessible. And I read somewhere, it's like, you know what? What you need to do is you need to stick a cartridge in there and turn it on, leave it on for 24 hours. I'm like, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
After 24 hours, the heat will cause certain components to expand and allow connections to work. And it worked.
What?
And I went through so much trouble, not a lot of money, but a lot of effort to get a working 32X. And wow, great.
What do you think is the best 32X game?
None of them. Maybe Virtua Racing Deluxe, but I like the original version better because it's more technically impressive. Virtua Fighter, even though I like Virtua Fighter on the Saturn and da-da-da. The 32X, as a Sega fan, the 32X is like the... Ugh.
If you're going to have me play a 32X game right now, what would it be?
Oh Jesus.
Tempo? Is Tempo good?
Tempo has horrible music, but we won't be listening to it. So yeah, fire up Tempo.
Why would a game called Tempo have horrible music?
Yeah.
It has really bad audio. But the Saturn version, Super Tempo, has amazing music. But it's super rare. But so you got that, and you've got Knuckle Chaotix, which just doesn't make any sense. I just don't. Ty, did you say Knuckles and Sonic and Knuckles you think is the worst Sonic game, or you just hate it?
I am not a Sonic fan, really.
Okay.
I've never really gotten into the Sonic games, and I had a experience where I was forced, along with a friend who also is not really a Sonic fan, to play through the entirety of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and we were at the end of the stream. We're out of.
All right, I'm looking at the chat.
I think we were on our last life.
I'll do Virtua Racing Deluxe.
And
let's do it.
We killed Robotnik, but he killed us at the same time. And and we were already kind of miserable playing the game, and that was the icing on the cake, because it was just to me, someone who the first video game they ever played was Super Mario Brothers. To me, the language of Mario is very clear. Spikes, bad, don't touch ever. Lava, bad, don't touch ever. Fire, bad, don't touch ever. Sonic is maybe you can spin into this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this bee has spikes on it, but as long as you're in a ball and spinning around, it's okay. But then other things, you're around in a ball and you hit them and it's not okay. And to me, as a person who did not grow up with Sonic, I have a very hard time adapting to the visual language of Sonic. When is it okay to not be spinning? It has never presented itself to me as consistent. And I'm doing things like, why did that hurt me? I don't understand why that hurt me. And I feel like the sheer, I played Sonic 3 on virtual. I played the main Sonic trilogy, though I'm sure the hardcore fans would say it's not the true trilogy unless it's 3 Knuckles. But I played the 3 of those on virtual console. I liked Sonic 1 the best, actually.
Okay.
Sonic 1 is my favorite one too. Sonic 2 was a disappointment to me when it came out.
I feel like Sonic
That's probably a
sometimes
really unpopular
fails at
opinion.
being what I think Sonic is supposed to be, which is, just moving fast and seamlessly through the level. Sometimes it stops you, and Sonic 1 is guilty of that. But at the same time, I feel like Sonic 1 was difficult enough, and it took enough tries to get through it that I kind of became familiar and comfortable with the game through just repetition after you start over from the beginning several times. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, I can kind of I kind of understand the flow of the levels now, and I get it.
But a lot of people will say that it was not built for speed, even though that's kind of the defining aspect of it.
Right. But
a lot
since
of things.
I got to know the game a bit better, Sonic 2 was a lot easier and probably took me only 2 or 3 attempts from the beginning. And I never felt like I really got to know the game in that process. And then Sonic 3, you've got saves and infinite continues, and it was a lot shorter. And I was just kind of like, oh, well, this was over fast, and that wasn't that hard. I feel like.
But then you combine it with Knuckles, and you think it's too long then with Knuckles
too
on?
long and way too hard. The end Knuckles stages are just ridiculous, and certain gimmicks weren't very easy to sort of figure out. I mean, we just played a game, Breath of the Wild, that tells you nothing, but that game provides you with the tools that you need to understand how to make it work. Certain things in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I think it was 3 and Knuckles that had I think it was in the casino equivalent zone, that had these very strange
the barrels.
Yes. And you just how do you figure that out? I don't know. But I mean, there were a lot of machines and things that you grab onto and cranks and whatnots, and I remember there were some confusing things in some desert level, and it gets very difficult for someone who did not grow up on Mario. But then again, I hear people say that Super Mario Brothers 3 is hard, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So, I mean, people who grew up with Sonic, everything probably all clicks there and makes sense, and I don't know, and that should probably be the end of my I'm not that much of a Sonic fan rant for tonight.
Well, I will admit that I've never really heard that type of observation leveled at Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which I will admit is my favorite of the Sonic trilogy.
Understandably, I can see where people are coming from when they say that.
I think it's I mean, what can I say? Different strokes for different folks. I'm a huge fan of the Sonic games, except for Sonic CD.
Really, which I've not played a lot of that one in my time, but I understand. I feel like it's fairly popular, right?
Yeah, it is. I don't know why. It's just like the whole point of the game is to go really fast so you can travel through time. And the levels are set up in a way where it is impossible to build up speed, which I find so frustrating.
With the first one?
Sonic CD.
Oh, okay. See, I like Sonic CD.
But the thing is
it's my second favorite one after the first one.
Yeah, but you got to go back in time, so that's already a pain in the ass. And then you got to find this little dumb capsule to get a good future. And then the bosses are really difficult. It seems like every level that has a casino-esque theme, there's always some sort of frustration where like in Sonic CD, it's basically a pinball game except it's impossible to aim. Yada 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 yada. Again, I don't want to get into a Sonic bashing mode. Instead, let's talk about so Corey, ever played Thunder Force 4 or Lightning Force 4?
Oh yeah. This is a great game. I mean, the parallax scrolling in this game is insane.
It's very, very pretty. So yeah. No, sorry, I'm just those blue skies. I mean, that's kind of why I like Sega games. the colors are so rich and vibrant, and like if you're depressed, if you play a Sega game, it puts you in a good mood as far as I'm concerned. Like
I mean, Sega games do, like, I mean, I can say as someone that, has not been that into Sega until relatively recent years, there is something nice about that more limited color palette. I mean, obviously, back in the day, I would say most people would say it was a con. That it couldn't do as many colors, and on a technical level it certainly is, but there is, in the past 4 or so years I've played a number of Genesis games, and there is something like there's a look to them, and that I think that limited color palette kind of there's a certain appeal to that. And when you put in a Super Nintendo game, on the other hand, it's just like, oh well, of course the Super Nintendo could do all that, like whatever. But the Genesis, when you see the Genesis do it, it's like, oh, that's interesting,
Yeah. The one thing that everyone kind of ragged on the Genesis back in the day, and it's funny, again, taste change, and what used to be considered a limitation in the past is now considered like, it allowed for creative freedom, is I always liked the sound of Genesis games, like the soundtracks. And back in the day, people ragged on it. People said, oh, Super Nintendo games sounded better. And but
real samples,
Yeah, unpopular opinion. I do not like how Super Nintendo games sound for the most part.
Like all of them, or is it just like that Capcom reverb?
It's like, for me, the equivalent is most Super Nintendo games sound like the video game equivalent of the parents or the adults from Peanuts.
I could see that.
Like, wah, wah, wah. I'm like, oh my god. Seriously?
I mean, that's definitely an unpopular opinion, but I've seen the argument though that Genesis sound has character.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's what's the iconic line that, I wouldn't say it's iconic line, but it's like someone used to always say that the Genesis sound chip just sounds like farts.
Yeah, whatever.
And at times it does.
But
at times it does.
The trick with Genesis, I think more so than something like the NES sound chip, which, I mean, it's not often I play an NES game that has bad music. I mean, there certainly are those, but with the Genesis sound chip, I do think it took someone who really understood it to make good music. But when those people who really understood it worked it had this just incredible, unique sound. I think Yuzo Koshiro's, one of the most famous examples. And when you get that good, rich bass coming out of the Genesis, there is a very cool, very 80s, 90s sort of vibe to that true chiptune it can make. The Super Nintendo is based on real audio samples, so it's a little more generic. I love the Super Nintendo sound, but at the same time, I don't see anyone when people try to you've got something like Shovel Knight, for example, which uses Jake Kaufman used what's it called? Family Tracker to make the soundtrack for that. So you've got true NES sounds. Obviously, it uses more channels than an NES soundtrack could, but it's true NES sounds, and it's nice revisiting that sound. Yeah. And I think same thing with Genesis, when you have this true sort of chip tune sound in a modern representation of something retro, that's cool. But then when you have something that tries to take the more of these, it's a sound sample, but it's still synthesized music sort of approach, that stuff, it kind of falls flat. But from what I understand, truly copying the SNES sound is actually very difficult.
Yeah.
Apparently, the way it worked was you recorded the sound samples for the instruments and whatever sounds you wanted, and you had to ship that to Nintendo, and it came back to you in this format that could actually be used. So it was not a process that you could handle yourself, and I think it's only been relatively recent that I think an approximation of that has been cracked, or at least that's what I heard at one point. I don't know, if my information on that is completely accurate, but that's what I heard. And apparently, the reason that Donkey Kong Country has this super clean sound is that used shorter sound samples than normal, than most other games did, which is kind of weird. You wouldn't think that would make a better sound, but apparently it did. So yeah, I mean, I love the way SNES sounds, but I it's kind of funny. In the early days of the channel, I was still relatively new to the Genesis, or at least the actual Genesis hardware, right?
Yeah.
I'd played a number of Genesis games through the Virtual Console and other ways, but I was new to the Genesis hardware, and we kind of went through, right now we've kind of been accused of doing too much Nintendo stuff, and that's just really just because people have been doing interesting things with Nintendo hardware lately that we feel like we need to cover. But
we are taking a big break from Nintendo stuff.
Generally speaking, sort of a break. Yeah, I mean, at least Corey is. Like, I'm taking a partial break from Nintendo stuff right now, but Corey's trying to steer way far away from it because it's true, we have done too much Nintendo stuff lately. But it's funny because kind of in some of the early days, we looked at a lot of Genesis games because like Genesis was kind of new and fresh to me at the time. But it was fun kind of discovering some of that stuff.
I feel the need to clarify. Obviously there are some really good Super Nintendo soundtracks. I mean, it all comes down to the composition. Like not every Genesis soundtrack sounds good, but I think my bias also coincides with the fact that was at a point in my life where I got my first CD player, so I was getting into music. So the Genesis had a headphone jack, so I was able to listen to the music and like wow, like it's it sounded obviously a bit more clear and more defined through my headphones directly hooked up to it, as opposed to just going through. At the time, I had the Genesis hooked up via an RF signal, so of course everything's going to be more muddied and kind of crappier at this point on. So
it was crazy. Like it's funny because I remember when I started, I got into importing.
I'm gonna go pick something.
CDs.
It's gonna be a surprise this time.
Okay, I got into importing game music CDs. Probably around 97 or so, and 97, 98. Like because like I have very narrow musical interests, and that was game music was kind of what struck me. And like I'm like this is what I want to listen to, but I need to import it. And I remember importing like Super Nintendo soundtracks, and I'm like, wow, it sounds so much better on the CD. And what's funny is, well, I play those games on the real hardware on my setup now, and it sounds like the CD, but it was RF going through my, crappy mono speaker that was making it to where I thought the CD sounded so much better.
Well, when I was in college, I moved to New York, and there was, I went to Chinatown, and there was easy access to game soundtracks. So, So I listened to a lot of game music, and it's funny. It's like as much as I gravitated towards Sega music, because also, my first CD-based system was a Saturn, and a lot of it was Redbook audio. So, I found myself listening to the soundtrack to Daytona USA. Then I started appreciating their direct competitor, Namco. Like, I like Tekken music and Ridge Racer music. But, so I was really into, like, video game music. And, there was a girl that I liked in college. And what do you do when you like someone? You make a mixtape or mix CD. And for me, it was like video game music. And I figured, no. This is better than normal video game music. In the context where a lot of people at the time might just roll their eyes. I'm like, you give a girl a CD that has like beautiful orchestrationals from an RPG, and she listens to it. I'm like, this is video game music, right? I'm like, yeah, but.
But when I mean, the Genesis sound is like so unique that it really is, as far as I've heard, like never really emulated well.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's the only sound that I know that I never really hear emulated with enough satisfaction. And I always try and make an effort. If I am using Genesis music in an episode, I try to record off of the system, because if you download it, it's just not gonna have that oomph.
Yeah. I mean, I know there are various. On my iPhone, there's a program that will play like sound files from Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, and it's kind of like, to a certain extent, I'm a purist as well, but when I'm on the go, it's low file size. I can listen to the soundtrack to Contra Hardcore or Crusader of Senti, a really good Zelda clone for the Genesis.
That's a great game. It's really expensive now.
Oh God! Again, I remember buying that game off eBay in '99 for like $1, and now it's what, like $300, something ridiculous. So, but so question for you two. So, this is probably going to be another derisive question, but what is your opinion about the state of emulation in light of the fact that a lot of games, primarily on CDs, just the nature of the medium, the discs are going to corrode after a certain point, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't run into any, what we call it, disc rot issues.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, almost to the point where, I mean, I in my head, I'm like, I know I should believe that, but in my mind, I'm like, I've always been fine. I don't know, maybe it's all right. But I mean, I haven't run into any issues like that, but I kind of accept, more so than for the state of the discs, but or more so for the state of the console disc drives, than the state of the discs. I kind of accept that, the future of game preservation for those systems is stuff like, SD media launching. I don't know. I am not super knowledgeable about the emulation, where emulation is at for those systems right now. Like, I think like PlayStation is pretty good. And I don't know about like the CD add-ons for, like Sega CD, and I don't know. I just don't know how emulation is for that stuff. But I do think like for, I think the long-term future for disc-based systems, I want to get backup consoles for a lot of those systems that I can, take out the disk drive and modify with a SD media launching system. Like Corey's got the what do you call it, the RIA?
The Phoebe is the version.
The Phoebe for Saturn, and I've seen things like that for GameCube and Dreamcast, and and I don't want to do those with my systems, because with the exception of my fat PS2, all of my my disc-based systems, thankfully still work very well. So I don't want to ruin those, but I do want to be ready for when those, I want to play my real discs on my real system as long as possible. But I'm not really that interested. Like, I'm interested to a small extent in like flash carts and stuff, but like I mostly have faith in my cartridges working for a very long time. But I kind of accept it for the day is going to come sooner for systems like Saturn and PlayStation and PS2 and etc.
I suppose that it is the happy medium, isn't it? About I think the best compromise is taking actual hardware and modifying in a way where it can play game data, but perhaps not in the original format. So instead of a instead of
Like
the
a disc
actual
image is fine, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I will
load
rip my
faster.
own discs. You know.
That's what I that's what I want to do eventually is like, I mean, even though it's like purely like in my head, you know, I like the idea of
This game is like
ripping my
madness.
own
How do you
ROMs,
even play
ripping my
this?
own discs, you know, for use through, you know, non-standard methods like that. Just so I can be like, this is my own copy. Like, I just don't like having access to everything ever.
No, yeah,
Because
no, yeah.
it cheapens the experience to me. Like, I want that limitation of accessibility, you know, by which I mean owning the game.
Well, you know,
I like that because it makes me take a game more seriously. Like, I'm not just like,
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the EverDrive episode a little bit.
Yeah. So
And
it's
I'm the
like-
same way. Like, the EverDrive is kind of a convenient thing to have for situations like, you know, playing Alien Soldier tonight, or if we need footage from a certain game and we want to show some like varied footage of stuff. Like, it really helps. But we'll never play, like, sit down and play through a game saying like, I'm going to play this game that I don't have, and just, you know, never take it as like, this is your playthrough of the game. If that makes sense.
And, you know, I know this is old territory, but it's like, you know, it would, in a perfect world, you know, I would love to buy this old video game that's rare and super valuable and have that money go back to the original developers, but it's really going to some guy on eBay. So,
Right.
that being said, you know, I've kind of like changed my philosophical reasoning, and now I've come to I recently had my Saturn modded. So I could, you know, I don't necessarily, you know, I had a Radiant Silvergun and I sold it because I was super poor at the time. And like, do I want to spend the money to get it back again? Like, nah, this is a, you know, but not actual quote unquote emulation. But I remember back in the day, and this is again like the late 90s and early 2000s, you would hear people go, no way in hell will Saturn emulation ever be good. It's just never going to happen. And eventually you got to the point where, like, I guess it is kind of good, but I don't know. I mean, I'm a Mac guy, so I don't really follow a lot of that stuff. So, but Corey, have you ever played Batman Sega CD before?
Yeah. I mean, I just got this at MagFest, but I rented it when I was a kid.
Yeah. I was never really into the Sega CD just because there was only two games I was interested in. Sonic CD, which I didn't like, and Sylpheed, because I thought it'd be like Star Fox, but it really wasn't like Star
well,
Fox,
they kind of hyped it up as like the Star Fox killer at the time. And it is most definitely not. Not that it's a bad game, it's just
No, yeah. But
you know, you're flying the ship over a movie, essentially, with a movie playing in the background.
At the time, for whatever reason, I don't remember what the reason was. I think near the end, I didn't have a reason, but Sega used to have a phone number.
Yeah, 1-800-USA Sega.
Yeah, and you would call and you'd be put on hold, and it was the soundtrack to Final Fight on CD.
Interesting.
It was really nice. I listened to it all the time. So
you know, it's funny. I should get them out. I called the 1-800 Sega number all the time. Like, all the time.
Okay. All right.
I told Try about this. And I would, like, get the same people all the time, and I'd talk to them for, like, hours. Like, literally hours. And I have, like, letters that people wrote me, and they sent me stuff. Like, I have letters. I was going to do, like, a Patreon thing a while back from, like letters from the game counselors at Sega of America. And I was just going to read a whole bunch of them, you know. I was like 11, 12.
They didn't charge you like Nintendo did?
No, it was 800.
No.
It was free.
Yeah.
I mean, I have all these letters and pictures and everything from.
And they're like you're pretty convinced that they're like at least somewhat like not copy paste.
The what?
The letters. Like.
Oh no! They're handwritten. Like they're
Wow.
like They're like full on, like actual, like, hey, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my life, kind of stuff.
Wow.
This sounds like prison letters, but but different.
I mean, maybe you were talking about turning this into a
Patreon thing.
Patreon video, but it sounds to me like we could make this into like a legit documentary.
No, I don't have enough stuff. I mean, I can
track down the old people from the letters from Sega.
I know. I mean, if I didn't just like rearrange where they are, I could easily get them down. I got some cool stuff. I mean, I could get down a couple of little things. You want me to get down some stuff? Should I get down some stuff to show? I could. Or does it really matter? It doesn't really matter.
Whatever you want to
do. I got some like pretty cool like folders and stuff. They send me like Sega stuff. I'll get down a couple of things. Hang on. I'll be right back.
You were that dedicated of a fan.
I was.
Well, we're gonna.
Corey was a Sega kid.
That's why Corey and I click so much. He knows what it's like. He knows the fight. Yeah, well.
I mean, Corey has bonded with people just because they agreed that the Sega CD version of Final Fight was the best version of Final Fight. So.
Well, it is, but anyways, yeah. I mean, one of my best friends from college, we clicked because I don't know. He saw me doodling in my notebook. I drew like Gunstar Hero characters, and he's like, "Ooh, Gunstar Heroes!" And I'm like, "There we go." A friendship that will last forever and stuff like that. I mean, I'm assuming that kind of thing happens now. I would hope so. That some kid in school is drawing on his iPad, because I guess they all use tablets now, and he's drawing the character from Zero Dawn Horizon, Alpha Mission, Infinity, Andromeda, Destiny, and some other kid goes, "I recognize that," but then they post it on Tumblr, get 1,000 likes or whatever the hell. I'm not that old, but some sort of like similar bonding and stuff like that. So, but I'm trying to think of if I have any similar minutia. The only thing I have that's comparable, it's not video game related, is I remember writing a letter to Comedy Central, and they hooked me up with people don't remember this, but Mystery Science Theater 2000 used to have a zine, like a paper zine that they would send out to people, and one of them had video game reviews. Like Jim Mallon, the producer of Mystery Science Theater 2000, reviewing Doom 2, which was. He's like, all right, and he's like, it's like Doom 1, except it's more. I'm like, all right, there you go. So
look at this. They would send me like a lot of Sega stuff, and they sent me like some of these folders. I like this one the best though. This one is Sega for the 90s, the new generation, and it says up here, it says Sega does it all. It's some classic Genesis artwork.
Wow,
like another Genesis.
Wow, that's really nice. Holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, I've somehow managed to hold on to these.
Jesus. Okay.
Something I wrote in here about looks like there's a review that I wrote for Robo Alesti on the Sega CD. I gave an overall 7 at the time. It looks like.
Wait. So hold on. So who was the review for?
So a friend of mine and myself had a fanzine that we did. We did 2 issues of it. When we were in, I want to say we were in 6th grade.
Okay.
It was called Game Master.
Okay.
I have 2 issues. I a long time ago I read a couple of my reviews on there, but it looks like this one never made it to print.
Print as in like you just went to like a Kinko's or a copy place and just.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, my dad had a business and had a Xerox machine there.
Okay, all right. Do you have copies of the zine anywhere?
I have one of each of the issues.
I would like to see this one of these days. If possible.
So this is kind of like my thing here. I got a whole bunch of stuff in here. This is just like stuff from like my early teenage years, like this review of a concert I went to on November 12th, 1998, and I saw Garbage live. Wow. Right after their second album came out.
Only happy when it rains.
Yeah. Well, that was their first one. Let's see here.
I didn't know this about you.
See, look at this. I know I haven't really talked about it. Look at, see, check it out. So I got a Christmas card from them, from the game consoles at Sega, and it says, from like two people, and it says,
That's awesome.
"What's up, Merry Xmas."
Well, how did they get your address?
Well, I gave it to him. I used to get these, like they would give out these brochure things that had hints for games in them. The first time I ever called them was like getting help for Phantasy Star.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was no internet then. This guy.
People forget that before the internet, a lot of fan correspondences were done by you just write letters or you buy zines in like the old-fashioned snail mail way.
Yeah.
You know.
See, this guy had sent me a picture of Ken, a sketch of Ken from Fist of the North Star. Isn't it crazy, right?
So
I hope that everyone is like not so bored. Look at this guy. Look at this guy right here.
But normally Sega receives fan art. Sega's producing fan art for a fan. That's how I'm interpreting this. So that's pretty awesome. Oh my god. Okay. Sounds like you had a stalker at Sega back in the day.
Oh, here's another one. Another Ken right there. He's like using some nunchucks in this one. Sorry, it's like hard to see. I hope I'm not boring everybody that we've totally gone off course for this stream.
No, I mean it's wild, right?
Yeah, this is crazy.
Look at this. I got in here I have a Mortal Kombat 2 phone card for those long distance calls.
That Sega just gave to you?
I don't know where that's from.
Right.
I mean, at the time, it was like my
I got
internet
something
experience
like that
was
from
like
Mario Kart
Prodigy at the time.
64.
What's that?
I got a thing like that calling card. I got a similar thing like that from Mario Kart 64.
That's not Mortal Kombat 2.
I kind of wish. So Sega started. They opened up a GameWorks, which is, I think you two know.
Oh yeah, there's one actually right down the street from me.
Oh well, they
have an Afterburner Climax machine that is amazing.
So wait a minute. There's more than one GameWorks in North America?
Yeah, well, there's one in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh,
Or
wow.
Newport,
Okay.
Kentucky, rather.
Is it still operational, or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went there
Oh.
a couple months ago.
Oh.
With my brother.
What was the most?
It's mostly
recent game that
like
they
shooting games.
had? Okay, all right.
Look at this. Here's a sketch of Alex Kidd from Enchanted Castle. I guess they'd like to draw me pictures. Maybe it was like the easiest thing they could do.
Excellent rendering.
Yeah. So this guy, let's see, what did he send me here? This is like a letter. This guy was like a total surfer guy. His name was Mike McShane, and he was in a issue of Sega Visions. If you Google like the counselors of Sega Visions, there's a picture of him.
I mean, this sounds like we're getting a real insight into the personal lives of these Sega counselors. They
yeah, right.
They simultaneously they really valued your friendship. Perhaps they had some time to kill at work. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a really good doodle of Alex Kidd. Let me give it to this core.
Yeah.
He keeps calling us. Oh boy, it's like a weird symbiotic. I don't want to say codependent relationship.
I mean, this letter's from 12/20/90. We had a little party at work today. It was kind of fun. Also got to see the Nintendo 16-bit system. Today I got to the 4th level on Strider. It's a fun game. Well,
are these just unprompted correspondences? Like,
yeah, I probably wrote to them too. But I'd call all the time too.
I mean, was Strider already out at that time?
Yeah.
I mean, what if? I mean, would your faith in the game counselors be shaken if they could only get to the 4th level in Strider?
Now I think now yes. Then no. I remember one of them telling me about this. Look at this picture right here. I don't know what this is, but it's Spider-Man playing Super Monaco GP. You like that? Oh, I hope that the chat is enjoying this.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That is the best picture ever. Holy shit!
You might have the only copy of it.
Yeah, can you
Maybe.
please scan that in? I want that at least to be my iPhone background. You know,
They even had like letters with Sega Genesis letterhead on it.
my god! I mean, on one hand, it's beautiful that they connected with one of their young fans, but it's like, man, it's like they were also bored at the time, weren't they? I mean, not to diminish the back and forth, but it just. Like, oh, what'd you do today, Bob? Like, well, I couldn't beat the level 4 in Strider, so I wrote to another kid. Yeah, so I sent him a random picture.
It's like so crazy to me. You like talk to them for like hours.
I know, yeah.
Like
you say this so matter of fact, like
I know, like I almost have a hard time believing all of this, but here you are with the proof.
This person, I think that I think it was Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine. They had a whole like fanzine section in the back, and you could send your information, and people could get into contact with other people who had fanzines.
Yeah,
I got this letter from somebody by the name of Kurt Stone. I wonder where Kurt Stone is now. He says, I got your name from the fanzine reader list, and I'm looking for other gamers who collect handheld electronic games. I would like to buy or trade handheld games.
Wow.
I have many game items to trade: Vectrix, game magazines, original Atari posters, cartridges, etc. I also need tips on Game Boy and Lynx games. Thanks, and please write back.
Wow,
Sincerely,
that's
Kurt
awesome.
Stone.
I mean, seriously, like you could make a whole documentary out of tracking down people from.
I don't know if it would be a documentary. But...
Yeah, it would.
Yes.
Look at this. I don't know. I wonder how much this would go for. This is a check it out. This is a 3DO temporary tattoo.
God. Oh God.
When you finally get a 3DO, you need to apply it.
My God. You know what? Actually, it reminds me. I remember. I think it was through Video Game and Computer Entertainment magazine. There used to be like a postcard where if you could fill it out and check off these boxes for what systems you wanted to know more of. And I think you send it in. I think they sold that information to various video game companies because after that point, legit once a week, I would get a letter or a pamphlet from Atari trying to sell me their Atari Jaguar, like just constant, nonstop. I would get junk mail. My parents would complain, "Oh no, another publisher's clearinghouse, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, you got a letter, Matt?" And I'm like, "Oh great, it's another damn email or like a letter from Atari for their Jaguar." I think they even sent me like a VHS cassette. They were desperate to sell those Atari Jaguar.
Wait, you had an Atari Jaguar VHS cassette?
I think so, yeah. Like they said just crap. I don't think I even watched it. I really regret this. I just threw it in the mail. Like they sent so much pamphlets, like propaganda trying to tell me why they're so much better than the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and stuff like that. So,
I would be very interested in seeing a Atari Jaguar VHS tape. I mean, because I don't know a lot about the system or how they marketed it. So I mean, I'd be very curious just to see a relic of that era.
Well, do either of you remember the Philips CDI infomercials?
No. Really quick, I just want to show everybody another sketch really quick of this guy right here. He's got like a cape and a ninja mask on, and he has like a bunch of weapons. And there's an arrow pointing to him that says, "America's #1 crime fighter."
There he is, right there.
Yep. If you were wondering who America's #1 crime fighter was in 1990, this guy right here. Let's see if we can get in here. Hang on. That says America's #1 crime fighter. See, look at they sent me stuff in this. Oh, I don't want to put it. That's my old address. It doesn't even matter. But it's just like Sega America, Consumer Products Division, San Francisco, California.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I mean to interrupt you guys before. Let's see if I can. I'm gonna put it all back now. I'm gonna see if I can find anything else though.
By the way, be sure to remind me. I have a question that I want to ask everyone in the live chat. I want to ask you two people. All right, so as you guys know, or I said at the top of the live stream, a track mode, we produce apparel that's video game related, and we try to do things that are like a little different. Take this for however you want, but I like video game clothing that doesn't scream, I like video games. Like,
yes.
It's
oh
cool.
yeah.
Someone will go, all right, that's cool. So I'm always thinking of ideas for shirts and stuff like that, and then trying to find an artist to produce something. So let me ask you two this, Corey and Tri, and everyone in live chat. Would you two be interested in buying a shirt that clearly referenced the Framemeister?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It depends.
All right. Okay. All right. No one's done this, right? And maybe by just saying this, I've let the secret out, and there's going to be a Redbubble produced available Framemeister T-shirt. But so yeah, okay. If at the very least I have 2 sales, okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you make 2 different designs of Framemeister inspired shirts, I will buy both.
Okay, excellent. All right. Okay. Corey hasn't said anything, so
Maybe it depends.
All right.
So, and one of these things from the guy at Sega, I got a picture. This for all the old wrestling fans of the tag team, the Killer Bees.
God.
Sorry, I don't know. I
So
just
obscure.
and Doc Martens original
Wait.
air cushion shoe thing.
So
But yes, I mean, I might. It depends on what I'm not a big fan of like images on a shirt that take up the entire front. I'm a big I like something like right across the chest, and that's about it.
I mean, obviously it would depend on the design, but I mean, if it was
obviously, yeah.
if it just, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a shirt that just said Framemeister or had some sort of design of the Framemeister itself. I mean, I just think it would be so. I mean, I would just buy it because I think it's hilarious. Like, ultimately, how much the Framemeister has taken over my life and the things that it has spun off onto that has basically been the basis of this channel.
It's like I want this shirt to be like when I go to PAX and someone is doing Lunar the Silver Star cosplay and everyone ignores this person, but then they get that one individual goes, "Hey, Lunar Silver Star,"
Yeah,
and he or she goes, "Yeah, thank you, my weekend's complete." So
Yeah, I mean,
in a T-shirt form and stuff like that.
I know I would love a.
All right.
I mean, so that's something you're doing? Is a Framemeister?
I want to do that. So basically you two are my focus test.
Uh-huh.
And I guess we'll go ahead. So.
I mean, I think if we put that out on Twitter, I think at least a few people would buy one too. So,
I think it's one of those things where like people who are really into the Framemeister are like, wow, they made a shirt. I guess I'm gonna get one. I spent $300 on an upscaler. I may as well spend $30 on the T-shirt.
Right.
Let the world know. So I'll wear it like a couple times, and maybe one person out of 1,000 will go, "Hey, Framemeister, cool dude," and that's it. End of that story. So sweet, because we coming up. Not to I'm sorry guys, but this is a platform. I'm a business person. I have to show up. I am wearing the Click Stick shirt.
What is
you got the
what is the click stick? Sorry, I'm just.
Stick shirts.
It looks it's a TV on side is what it looks like to me.
Yes, which is very popular means of playing games.
Arcade games.
Yeah, tape mode.
Tape, yeah, so. There used to be a website called ClickStick, and it doesn't function. You know, it's still around, but it hasn't been updated in about 10 plus years. And it was one of the very first shirts that I bought that was like referential to that side of video gamedom. So, long story short, I still know Click of ClickStick fame, and he has given me permission to reproduce his shirts 12 plus years later. So for the 4 people in the world out there who didn't get the shirt back in 2005, you're going to have your chance very soon. So, there you go. So, yeah, that's, that's what I'm going to be doing. That's the next shirt that we're producing. So, but anyways, yes. So, yeah. And hopefully, later down the road, I'll be doing a Framemeister shirt and some other stuff, and such like that. So, so now it's March. What do the 2 fine stallions of the My Life in Gaming? What do you guys got planned later down the road? What can you reveal to the general public at large?
Well, I am. Let me see how I can see my webcam. I am making a mess.
Oh, wow.
Over here presently with SCART switch boxes and messes all over everywhere, and I'm pulling out some of my systems for testing and all that stuff, and I am getting close to finishing the script for our very long promised SCART Switchers episode.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that is something that we've I don't think it would be a stretch to say been avoiding for like 2 years. But it's finally happening. Corey was actually originally going to do it, but Road Avenger, I just played this a few months ago and it was freaking fantastic. We like right around when we released the first RGB episode was when I was first kind of looking into switchers, and it kind of took us a while to get settled with the switchers we were using, and then they kind of became not that available, and then they became available again, and we didn't want to just like make a video like, oh, here's a couple of SCART switchers we tried, but you can't buy them.
Yeah.
And so we kind of kept putting it off, and then there were some interesting, like the G-SCART kind of came back, and then there were some other interesting alternatives, and then we're like, oh, maybe we should cover component switchers too, and then Corey got into Extron boxes, and et cetera, et cetera. So
it's gonna be pretty fully featured at this point, and it's a lot. As with all the episodes, it takes us a while to get around to. They're much better than they would have been.
Right. So, and Corey was going to do it, but we kind of realized that Corey's working on some important episodes right now, and my schedule was kind of a little more free in terms of, what I'm planning to produce. So, since I was just at Corey's a few weeks ago, he sent back with me most of sort of the switcher stuff that he had been acquiring specifically for the episode. And so now I'm working on it because we just felt that it needed to happen sooner than later, because we borrowed a few things for the episode and, et cetera. And we just didn't want to feel like we were, holding out on that any longer. And then, it's definitely one of our major backlogged episodes. So it's going to be good that we're finally going to get done. And I was telling Corey, I think it's good that I'm doing it now that I realize what's kind of getting involved in putting these through their paces and capturing from the switchers and capturing control shots, to sort of verify the differences and the quirks. And Corey really likes to keep his setup like.
I don't want to pull everything apart because
every time you pull something out, like you're just itching to get it back in place. And,
Yeah.
I get that. Like I want everything to be nice and clean too, but I've kind of been planning like a setup overhaul for a little while now.
Yeah.
And it was. Originally, it was going to be when I get a 4K TV, which I'm planning to do sometime this year. I'm not ready for that yet, but I'm not ready to pay the money for that yet, more specifically. But I figured out like how I want to rearrange my setup for that, and I realized I can put most of the pieces in place even before getting my 4K TV, because I'm crazy and I'm not putting the 4K TV in place of where my TV is right now. I'm going to put it next to my TV and leave my TV there. So, because everything is stupid and I have to have a bunch of screens. But anyway, point is, it's okay that I'm pulling my switchers out and pulling my systems out, because I decided after I finish this episode is when I'm going to rearrange my furniture and rerun my wires and get everything set up.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Oh, maybe not. No, it's right after this. It's my favorite part of the whole game. It's like this two frame shot of the guy working at the hotel.
You played on the.
There it is.
Played.
Love that part. I'm like that guy in the N64 video. Love that part.
You played the version of this that people had ported to play on the SD2 SNES.
Right. But it doesn't have the intro.
Right, but the video was a lot smoother. Like it was taken from, I guess, the arcade version or whatever.
Right.
The source Laserdisc video. Okay.
I mean, it's a bit more compressed though.
It's got more modern compression artifacts.
But I think this looks better.
In a way, well, it's choppier and has less colors, but I definitely get what you mean. Like it's got these, what we're used to seeing as modern video artifacts. It was very artifacted in that way. But this, Sega CD video compression is a whole different beast.
Right.
It feels nostalgic. I mean, even though like I wasn't, really in the Sega CD scene, obviously, but there's a charm to its compression that isn't just like, ooh, that's an ugly artifact. Like it's, got this very pixely, low color look that's like, oh, this is interesting, I guess, rather than like, I've been thinking sort of in the aftermath of the VHS episode, like, there was definitely a time where it's like, VHS movies, like, why would I hold on to this junk? I mean, obviously I held on to my game tapes because those were unique, but like VHS movies, like, when we were transitioning to DVDs, it's like, why would I ever look at this again? But obviously, we've come to have a lot of nostalgia for it, just for that particular sort of analog look. But DVDs, like right now, I just cannot foresee a time where I'm nostalgic for a DVD. But I mean,
that's you. I mean, the thing is, everyone's nostalgic for what they grew up with, and there's
right.
going to be kids who grew up with a DVD player, perhaps one that their parents put in their bedroom, or like maybe the DVD player in the car that their parents
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
They're gonna be jonesing for that.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no character though.
Well,
it's easy for us to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. So that's why I say I'm sure there's going to be nostalgia for DVDs, but it's so interesting to think about because it's hard for me to get my head in this frame of mind where I'm understanding where that where that feeling would come from, because it doesn't have the analog character of VHS, but it doesn't have the clarity of Blu-ray. I mean, heck, what if one day there's nostalgia for Blu-rays? Like, it's going to be crazy. Like,
Well,
that I guess I can maybe see a little bit more, because Blu-rays may be the last, like, major disc-based physical medium. It's going to be, like, the best disc-based physical medium.
There is to be said also, nostalgia, well, at least from my point of view and the people that I gravitate towards, we like failed media. So I know a guy who's a big, remember HD DVD Blu-rays competitor?
A fan just sent me the Xbox 360 HD DVD player.
I know.
With like 6 movies.
I think they made, 18 ultimately? I think maybe a little more than that, but it's like, and also I think for collectors, it's easy to have everything. There isn't that many of them. That's why it's like people like collecting for Virtual Boy, because there's only 20 games, if that, etc. like that. So,
right.
But it's like, I mean, it's funny as a 40-year-old firing up Tumblr, and I see these kids being very nostalgic for VHS, for something that maybe they didn't really grow up with, but they've heard about it and it's eulogized, and it sounds wacky, like maybe the next generation isn't going to fetishize DVD menus, but maybe the generation after that will be.
I
can see that.
I can see like DVD menus being like, you've got like those bad CG representations of like a set from the movie. I can kind of get behind. I can already kind of get behind something like that. Okay, I'm going to go start buying 25-cent DVDs now. With HD DVD, it always did sort of surprise me that it didn't. Like, I mean, I don't think to my knowledge, there was absolutely zero advantage to HD DVD over Blu-ray.
I think Blu-ray was the better of the formats, but I just think HD DVD was a cooler name than Blu-ray. Like,
I agree. Like, I'm surprised, in spite of Blu-rays just kind of being straight up better in every way, I'm almost surprised HD DVD didn't succeed because it had a more marketable name.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think the selection of movies probably had some. Also,
can I just say really quick that this might be one of the best games ever made?
Oh, it's good. It's awesome. It's really good. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I never played it until this year, and I thought it was amazing.
But back to also, it's like, how did PS2 beat the Dreamcast? Because it had a built-in DVD player, and the PlayStation 3 had Blu-ray built in, and I think it came with Spider-Man 3 when you first bought a PS3 or an early version of it. So it had the Sony marketing push where HD DVD just didn't have that type of pull or cachet. So back to the Philips CDI. So they made 2 infomercials, and one of them I grew up watching, and I'm trying to find an uncut version of it.
You just drove underneath that semi. You just like drive underneath it in between its wheels. You just like plow right through it. Sorry.
But so there's
driving around outside of a factory.
There's 2 Philips CDI infomercials, and the second one, there is an uncut version of it. I'm doing a review for track mode, and the thing is, like, you buy this machine that will play games, but it also play movies, and they're really pushing 2 Weddings and a Funeral or some romantic comedy. Like, that was the one killer app of the Philips CDI. It's like, it's like, oh, the kids can play the video games, and the mom can play 2 Weddings and a Funeral, like, over and over and over again. So, Anyways, long road to get back to the Philips CDI infomercial, but
for people who in the chat who are not aware, we kind of
did it like an end over an end flip. You know what I'm talking about? It goes to that thing, and if you look at the scenery outside, watch, here it comes. It's an end over end flip that this car does. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, Try, but if you've never noticed it, it's gonna put a big smile on your face. Watch. But look at the cockpit. Watch what we're seeing. Right?
I never thought that much about how it was upside down. You know, my favorite part of this game is in the forest level. If you miss the boat prompt and the boat just crashes through the windshield, your car just stops and the boat is just lodged in the windshield. But I was gonna say at the end of the VHS video, Corey plugs our side channel that we sort of got going recently. It's just called Video Game B-Roll.
Yeah.
And we put up almost all of the full tapes, the exception being the Pokemon tape because it was just blocked. That tape was in really bad shape anyway. But yeah. We put up other than that, the full length of all of those tapes. And you know, they're free for other people to download and do things with if they want. And as well, we're also putting on that channel, in addition to like archival materials like that, we're also putting up some of the game playthroughs we do. Sometimes it's stuff that we did a lot, but probably most of the time it's going to be stuff we played through for an episode, but we're just going to put up the full playthrough or selections maybe, or maybe it's a partial playthrough, but it's just going to be you don't find a lot of just, no commentary gameplay clips from original hardware and, RGB quality on YouTube. So that we're just kind of putting that out there. And again, that's stuff that if people want to use that as B-roll for their own projects, they're free to do it. But anyway, the reason I brought it up was because right when we started that channel was when I played through Road Avenger on the Sega CD. So my beat run of Road Avenger, the time that I actually finished it, is on Video Game B-roll. If you want to see the whole thing with no voices over it, no commentary, just that glorious sounds of Sega CD Road Avenger. And but yeah, check it out, Video Game B-roll. Last time I looked, we had almost 1,000 subscribers on already.
Yeah, the VHS video was like it kind of did a lot of wonders for it, I think.
Well, the video that I think that got the most views ultimately in the aftermath of that was the Lords of Thunder video.
Right.
And we think it's because it came to light that Tony Hawk edited that video.
Really?
Yeah.
And I think it must have just kind of got shared somewhere because of that. And that video seems to have gotten a few hundred views.
It's like over 1,000. It's like 1,500.
Oh, okay.
That reminds me. So I mentioned back in the day when money was really tight. You think of like, okay, what can I use to make some quick money? So I had Radiant Silvergun, which even it goes for hundreds of dollars now. Back in like 2000, 2001, it went for a lot of money. So before I sold it, I actually recorded myself playing it. And I recorded it with a VCR.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I got a...
Do you still have it?
I still have that tape somewhere. Yeah, I never throw away my VHS cassettes.
Man,
so.
I wish I had a whole bunch of VHS recorded gameplay from when I was a kid, like Battletoads and Battle Maniacs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Batman Sega CD.
I wish I had, I didn't really do that, but I did record. I didn't do it a ton, but I recorded some Mario Paint, and I wish I had that stuff.
I have a buddy of mine he's part of Fangamer, where he just makes these wacky, pedantic animations out of Mario Paint. And he just records it on a VCR and then he just erases the data. Well, no, you can't even save it. So I think he talked about, or at least I was encouraging.
You can save it, but only one thing at a time.
Yeah. I think I was encouraging to make a feature-length movie, animated in Mario Paint, recorded on VHS.
I think it'd be a hit in a small sphere anyway.
It'll be an art house hit, you know. But no, it's oh man, you said something I totally forgot about.
So that's the one you always think about. You know, you probably like it makes you sad to think that that's the one you had to sell.
Yeah, okay, no, actually, I suppose so because I really love that game. But again, it's like around 2001, the economy was really bad. 2002 because of post 9/11, and at that point, I had a nice little modest Super Nintendo collection, which included like all the greatest hits and Earthbound, and I sold all of it for like on eBay for like I think like $50. Yeah, and now it's like the net worth is like a couple hundreds of dollars, but I don't know. It's like, you know, it's like I was saying earlier. It's like, you know, for me, I guess I'm more concerned about having the actual hardware than the you know the games themselves, just because, especially the CD format. But you know, now there is concern about how, like, you know, with disc-based systems, at least the drives become, you know, they start to stop working. You know, like I had a pristine modded PS2 that I barely touched, but then the first one started going away, like started giving out, and then I used the second one, and now that one's giving way. And you know, now that there's solutions like CD SD-based solutions which will circumvent that. So it's kind of like, you know, I think we're lucky now. You know, we're at that point where like we can still enjoy original hardware, and there's on the horizon there is this hope for these solutions that will allow us to still hang on to it. But maybe 30 or 40 years from now, all the original hardware might be failing. Like I'm still I don't understand why there isn't some artisanal factory that's producing CRT TVs. Like I'm just kind of
I heard something about some Chinese factory was doing it recently. I don't remember where it was from. I don't even know if it's real. But I feel like I heard something about it.
I mean, you would think, though, it would be something more common, would have a distribution method for getting in the hands of people who are interested in it.
Yeah, no, and there are people who are interested in CRT TVs for a variety of reasons. You know, a lot of video purists, etc., like that, video artists, not necessarily video game type individuals, but it just seems to be, from what I like hearing about this new Chinese solution, gives me some hope, because up to this point it just seemed to be one and done. Okay, goodbye CRT TVs. It's all LCD or flat screen panels, etc., like that. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting though.
So fast.
These next few years, because I mean, if the price of the PVMs are already going up pretty significantly.
And thrift stores aren't, like, just in the past year have pretty much across the board stopped taking CRTs.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them have. Yeah, it's weird. I don't quite know. I mean, I guess the Habitat for Humanity by me has a couple of them, but you know, a lot of Goodwills stopped taking them.
Because it's funny, because, you know, like I mentioned, I'm moving things around, and I have a CRT TV. I think it's a Toshiba that I believe, Corey, I think you have this similar model, except mine is pretty big, and just moving it around is such a pain in the ass. And it's like
of what, which CRT?
It's like a 32-inch, 36-inch CRT Toshiba.
Oh yeah, mine's 27. I have a 27 and a 19 of that one.
I've got the 24 and like a 13 of it.
Yeah, it's just such a pain in the ass to move around. Like, I love the picture quality.
Right. But then again, you live in New York, so it's like, I mean, when I lived there, I would never have had them there. I didn't have any CRTs when I was there.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I only got an HD TV relatively recently, like in like 2013 or something crazy like that. And you know, I was that guy trying to play PS3 games and Xbox 360 games, and like I just couldn't read the text. It drove me nuts. And I felt like, in addition to holding out because I love classic systems, at the time, well, I stopped in 2009. I wrote for Nickelodeon magazine, and I'd get a lot of letters from parents saying it would drive them nuts that their kids couldn't play, Xbox 360 games on an old CRT TV in their kids' bedrooms. But now, flat screen TVs are so cheap. I mean, that's why I eventually got one. It was so cheap I couldn't resist. So back to 4K TVs. They're going to be dirt cheap soon anyways, right?
I think they're already pretty cheap.
Some are already relatively cheap, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, they're starting to replace 1080p TVs. I mean, the 1080p TVs are, in a few years, it's going to be kind of uncommon, like 720p TVs eventually did.
Right.
So, maybe I shouldn't. Oh well, we're all friends here. So this past fall, I did a book release party for a graphic novel that's based on Tetris. The author is Box Brown, really good, highly recommend it. So I did a launch party where my buddy Nick, who hopefully he's watching this, but he's the guy who's like the big cue card aficionado. So he had this party in his apartment where he had all these little classic systems hooked up to these tiny TVs, and one of them looked really cool. This tiny CRT TV that was translucent. It kind of looked like old IMAX. And I asked him, where'd you get these TVs? The televisions are from prisons.
Oh, yeah, like the see-through ones, right?
The see-through ones, yeah. And then I'm like, oh my God. And he got them through his connections at NYU. NYU has a internal listserv where people sell and they trade equipment. And someone acquired these little they're really small, portable CRT TVs. The reason why they're see-through is in prisons, prisoners will hide drugs or weapons wherever they can, including televisions. But if it's a see-through TV, you can't hide stuff.
That is, oh man! Now I've never seen that.
Really? Well, you don't have Facebook. I see them all the time on the CRT Collective Facebook group.
I work at a university and we have a criminal justice program. Maybe I can find maybe I can find some connections.
Well, if you go on eBay right now and you just put in prison TVs, you're gonna find them. And
but you gotta pay shipping. That's crazy shipping.
Yeah, but I'm just curious.
Now the thing is they don't have audio output. A lot of them don't have speakers, but they have headphone jacks. Because I'm assuming, in a prison, people are gonna be fighting over audio or something or another like that. But then I discovered they do make flat screen versions of that, which is kind of odd. But the weirdest thing about these CRT TVs. They're made recently and they have digital tuners. So, you think a lot of CRT TVs, they're analog based. So,
right. Only have 99 channels or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm setting up the prison TVs in the gallery, and we're having a problem because you two know this. When you get I tried hooking up a Famicom and I was hooking it via RF. And instead of channel 3 and 4, it's channel 95 and 96 in Japan. And we don't have the remote, and we're trying to figure out the input situation. And we're like, wait a minute, we can get channels here over the air. So here's a tip for everyone. Yeah, if you go on eBay, get a CRT TV for prisoners, you don't even have to get a digital tuner, but you will have to get portable speakers and such like that, or headphones. But they're really nice. Picture quality's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It's so I've never seen anything like that before. It's so cool. This one says RCA 13-inch DTV model, see-through clear plastic contraband.
Yeah.
I don't know why it says contraband, but whatever.
So, but I mean, it's this constant struggle. Should I finally try to sell my flat screen TV? Because again, in New York, I'm assuming if I put it on Craigslist, I'm gonna get a buyer.
Yeah, within a day.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's I know I'm gonna miss it. And a buddy of mine had the same exact model, but the 13 or 17-inch. One of the you guys have that size. And I asked him, hey man, do you still have that? Because I'd love to. He was like, nah, I just threw it away. I'm like, oh my God. But this is that in-between time where no one realized that CRT TVs were going to become so. Again, I amend a lot of.
It's very specialized, really. I mean, People who aren't into games have no desire for them.
And they have no clue that anyone wants them.
Right.
Again, in New York, there is a demand for it because you got a lot of video artists and like video fetishists or people who love that stuff. But I'm assuming in not to Lubbock, Texas, maybe there isn't that much of a drive or demand for, it's like, again, when you live in a major city, so we have an arcade here in New York that was offshoot from the Chinatown Fair arcade, and they had it's called Next Level in Brooklyn, and they had I found out through Tumblr a Virtua Fighter meetup, like, hey, I love Virtua Fighter, so I went there and I talked to all these people that are all from the East Coast, and there's a guy from St. Louis. I'm like, hey man, what's the Virtua Fighter scene like? And he's like, you're talking to him. I'm the only guy who plays Virtua Fighter. I'm like, okay. So are there in your so where are you guys from again? You're in Kansas City or what is it?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. And I am in Cincinnati, Ohio now.
So what's the video game scene there like in both of your cities?
It is crazy here.
Oh, really?
It is insane, actually.
A lot of people?
A lot of people that are people that you would not expect. There is a huge amount of collectors here. I've never lived I had no idea that there was going to be as many people into what they're into here when I first moved here. I mean, people that are, from, like John Linneman from Digital Foundry is from here. I don't know if you're familiar with Digital Foundry. They're part of. I guess they're not a part of, but they're
hosted by Eurogamer.
Yeah, it's kind of they do all these frame rate tests and everything.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Digital Foundry that does the side by side
comparisons.
Right. Okay, no,
he happened to be from here.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I know people that have crazy collections. This one guy has a complete Sega collection, every single Sega released game in the U.S., variants and everything. Not Sega only released, but games every single Genesis game, every single Saturn game, every single Sega CD game, every single Master System game, every single Dreamcast game.
Well, Corey, you know this. You used to live in New York. It's kind of hard to have a complete collection.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mentioned this before. My buddies that are way hardcore collectors, when the Amiibos came about, and they were buying all of them, and I have a couple of them at this point, but I didn't get every single one of them. And I'd go to their apartment in Queens, and they'd open up their closet, and it's just they don't have that much closet space,
right?
And it's nothing but Amiibos. And I ask them so what does your wife think of this? And they're like, she's not thrilled and stuff like that. So Corey, when you moved to where you are now, I'm assuming because it was for work purposes, did you assume there's there aren't going to be many video game people, and you were just
I mean, I had no idea. And even in the surrounding area, I mean, within 2 hours of me, there is a crazy amount of people. Voltaire, who's in the chat, is about a little bit over 2 hours away from me. And he's does crazy mods. Kebtris, who created the HDMI NES, is less than 2 hours away from me.
Oh wow!
Okay. I somehow stumbled into probably one of the best places I could possibly have moved to for doing what we do.
All these stores and have gotten to know the owners really well.
Yeah, I mean, there's this guy who has a arcade / game store called Arcade Legacy, and he knows tons and tons of people. I mean, the scene is pretty crazy around here. I just found out that one of the guys who is with Darksoft, who does a lot of arcade hardware and mods and development, multi-carts and stuff like that, is just moved here. It's crazy. It is crazy, and I'm constantly amazed by how it's actually kind of a small world.
And it was really good timing for you since you started the show kind of on the tail end of your time in New York. And
Yeah, I mean,
it's just like a good place for you to ended up being. Like it's helped. I think the show has kind of helped foster your place in the Cincinnati game scene, and likewise that has I think benefited the channel as well tremendously. You being in an area like that,
right? I mean, Arcade Legacy as a whole has a whole like. Believe it or not, this is like the epicenter of the Vampire Savior fighting game scene.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. A lot of, it's there's a lot of tournaments come through and play at Arcade Legacy. We're gonna be kind of shooting a little mini doc, hopefully, on the Mortal Kombat fighting scene in the next weekend probably. That'll be kind of like a one-off episode. I just found out the guy who's like leading up it enjoys the show, so I was like, oh man, that might be a good opportunity just to do a little something different.
How is the things on your end, Troy?
I mean, it's I mean, for all I know, it could be like a lot more happening than I think it is. Corey Corey tends to be a lot more outgoing than I am, so I think he sort of slipped into the scene that's out there maybe a little more easily. Right. I went for, I've lived in this area. I'm originally from North Carolina, but I, kind of lived all over growing up. But I came back to North Carolina for college, and I've stayed here ever since in the Charlotte area. So I've been in the area since 2002, and I didn't know until probably 3 or so years ago that there's actually a number of really good retro shops in the area. And some of them I don't think started up until more recently, but actually we do. We've got a lot of good retro stores within 30 minutes, the closest is probably 30 minutes away. And then there's some others, maybe if I go out an hour, but yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of stuff like that. I haven't really gotten to know the people there as well as Corey has in his area. I've gotten to know, the manager at one store called Save Point, which is probably one of the more well-known stores in the area. It's very small, but they they tend to have good stuff and usually have some pretty reasonable prices, especially for hardware. So, they're when people hear I'm from Charlotte, they're like, oh, have you ever been to Save Point? Because that's, that they hear about. The other one that people hear about is The Grid, which is a Goodwill operated store that is like specifically for video games and computer stuff. And people are like, oh, that's awesome. Like a Goodwill that's just for games. Except the thing is you aren't really getting Goodwill prices because they know what stuff is actually worth. It can be a little hit and miss. But, we've got some stuff like that. I've met some people. And in some ways, it's kind of a crazy coincidence. Like it's, the old How to Beat tapes that we did that you are obviously familiar with. We kind of started those as like, we kind of branded them as being part of the Backloggery, which is I don't know if you're familiar with the site. I'm one of the founding members of it. And it's kind of been a little crazy because the one of the guys that I started with, he's really the site owner. He lived in Indiana, and
which would have been 2 hours away from me. Less than 2 hours away from me.
And I'd known him from an old GameCube forum since 2001, and we ended up making this side together, and just through all these crazy sets of coincidences, he started dating a girl in North Carolina, and it was like 4 hours from me, but he started visiting North Carolina. And we did we started doing get-togethers when he was around, and then they they moved like out here like maybe 3 years ago. So now like this guy that I've been friends with for like 18 16 15 to 17 years or so, like, was a friend from far away, and now all of a sudden like he lives 12 minutes from me, and we do our backloggery Monday night streams like in person, like 90% of the time in the same place, and we're playing old school co-op games and on all this stuff. So in a way I almost feel like I've had this very strange opportunity to have my own little personal game scene here with them. It was something that didn't really exist for me before. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more out there. There absolutely could be. There's a lot of, like I say, a lot of good stores, but I haven't really integrated with the broader scene of people that I didn't know before, like Corey has sort of slipped into.
Funny how it all works out.
Well, yeah, I mean, Corey, you kind of know this. Like here in New York, there's people who don't live in New York. They don't understand. Sometimes the most basic things are a nightmare.
Oh,
like, yeah, like
yeah.
It's like, yeah, I can get really good Ethiopian food 3 a.m, but mailing a package, screw that. Like it's just it's a mind-numbing affair. And Corey, I don't know if you frequented Chinatown in the late 90s. It was like the golden era.
No, I mean, I moved there in 2003.
Okay, so yeah, like you missed out on the golden era of game stores. But after once the internet became popular and a lot of other things, a lot of that stuff died out. And like it's surprisingly difficult. Like on one hand, there's a lot of people here in New York, a lot of people like video games, but it can be tricky to meet up and find places to play video games and enjoy games. And you find you hear about these really cool independently run retro game shops all over the country. But in New York City, the pickings are really...
Someone says, I'm sorry, like really quick, I'm sorry. People think that it sounds like I was cutting my nails. I just like screwing around with this like this hematite bracelet or anklet thing, and it's just like a magnet. I'll stop. I'll put it over here.
Oh my...
Sorry.
What? I couldn't even...
Because people are like, is someone cutting their nails?
Oh, it looks like...
Sorry about that. That's just I was just doing it. I wasn't even thinking about it. It's like
rosary bleeds. Yeah.
It's like magnets, like these that kind of magnet things, and I've been having issues with my knees lately, and it like has fixed my issue whenever I wear it.
Oh.
It's weird.
Like it's okay, so it's like not like one of these gemstones, but
no, it's like magnet stuff. Sorry, I know it did sound like nails. I was just like doing it, and I was like trying to be real quiet when doing it. Sometimes I just fiddling around with it.
I couldn't hear it. Like my God, I guess.
Well, it's because you're hearing me through my webcam audio, and
okay.
it was very close to this one right here, probably.
Okay, so, but so I forgot what I was talking about, but
just Chinatown in the late 90s.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it's like it's difficult finding. It's funny, like I've made a lot of connections. It's funny, I've connected with people who play video games in New York, but only when we're like in Boston or Seattle for PAX. Is as silly as it sounds and stuff like that. So, but and rent being so high here, it's very cost prohibitive for people to run stores, etc. like that. So, and I'm like, I watch a lot of YouTube, obviously, and I do love it's just coincidentally these people who have these gigantic game collections. They all live in like parts of the country where you can have a gigantic house and fill it with collections and stuff like that. So
I definitely miss New York, but we were visiting in September.
Yeah.
And just like going there with 2 kids, and I'm like, I could not even imagine doing this every day with 2 kids in this
I mean,
city.
yeah, being a parent, it's like it's an effing nightmare in this city. So.
Yeah. That's why you pay somebody else to do it all,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So, do your kids play video games?
No, I mean they're not. I mean my daughter is like been messing around with the DS a little bit. She's getting better. I looked today and she was in the first castle in Yoshi's New Island. And that's pretty good, considering it took her a long time to even make it past the first level. I think she just dies until she gets the wings.
Okay.
And then, but still,
yeah.
it's, she's getting better. That's good. My son's only 2, so he's.
One of the wacky things in this Philips CDI infomercial is, it's set up like a bunch of vignettes.
Do you still have this? You still have this videotape?
The Philips CDI infomercial?
Yeah. Or was it
No,
was it on TV?
This one, like someone uploaded it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a scene where, like, it's set up where, like, these people need a Philips CDI in their life, and one of them is this it's so cheesy, where, like, so the basic setup is, like, there's these twin brothers, and one of them is a repair person, a computer repair person or something, and his twin brother works for Philips CDI, and whenever they get a call from the dispatch, like, all right, someone's computer needs problems, the jerky-ass Philips CDI brother shows up first to sell the family on why you need a Philips CDI, why you don't need a computer or video game console. So the setup is there's this woman, and she's a housewife, and her son is on the computer. And at this point, it was perceived that kids don't know, technology, and a kid, like, erases the hard drive of the computer, the husband's computer. She goes, oh no, what am I gonna do? And this Philips CDI salesperson shows up to say, you don't need a computer, you need a Philips CDI. But it's like there's this perception that kids didn't know anything, and now it seems like every kid knows how to, like, unlock iPhones and buy a lot of blah 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 blah. But, like, I have a lot of friends who have children, and these friends play video games, so I'm always asking them, like, are you, like, do you want your child to be into video games as much as you? Are you kind of afraid of that? How would you feel if your kids thought, oh, video games are lame or something like that? But
I mean, how would I feel?
Everything goes through cycles. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's very possible.
Who knows? We could end up with a generation that thinks that, like, video games are for old people.
yeah.
Yeah. It is what it is. If my kids are not into it, then whatever. I'm not gonna.
More for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Or they might think it's the coolest thing ever. Who knows?
I just don't want kids. I don't want them bending my Sega Saturn manuals. Because as I've established.
Yeah, I mean, I have everything kind of. It's all up in the attic, which is where I have everything set up here, and I felt comfortable enough to take everything, like, out of box protectors now. It's all kind of stored away. It's like in another room, and there's no way that my kids are ever going to be up here by themselves until, like, they're old enough to know better.
But
So.
do you foresee the future where they're like 9 years old and they just, I don't know, break a game or blah blah blah, and it's like something high? I don't know. Like, I don't know how dearly you feel about the collectability, or how precious you find.
Well, it depends on what it is. If it's something I have a lot of sentimental value to it, then sure. But
Okay.
I mean, we'll cross that bridge when it happens. I feel, if I'm just, like, very strict about it and reiterate, like, be very careful with this stuff. But I look back at me when I was, like, a teenager, and I'd, like, my CDs, like, all stacked up on top of each other. It wasn't until I was probably 17, 18 where I started thinking, like, oh, I should put everything back in their boxes or cases when I'm done with them.
Well, so I was a kid who, for whatever reason, my mom was like a cheap ass, and she instilled in me, like, you got to keep it in mint condition, make sure it's really nice, or whatever, for whatever reason, and that's been drilled into me. And I will admit, like, I don't like to admit it publicly, I have a hard time lending out things to friends sometimes, because I'll lend them a game, and it'll come back all scratched up to hell. I'm like, what the hell happened here?
How did you do that? I do not understand.
Yeah. So then I would find myself buying duplicate copies of certain things, or like certain movies or certain games, which, you know, is a bit cost prohibitive at a certain point. But you know, I figured, listen, I should get 2 copies of Guardian Heroes because you know. Not so much that I think it's gonna be valuable, but like, you know, it's a near and dear game to me, and you know. But then I'd have a secondary copy that I can circulate amongst friends to expound the virtues of what a wonderful game this is.
I can appreciate that, but I mean, it's very rare that I may have different ports of certain games. But usually, when I have like a sentimental attachment to certain games, it's usually like that specific copy of the game. You know,
What's the one game you have the most sentimental attachment to? Or
probably my copy of Phantasy Star, the first one.
It's pretty rough.
It's pretty rough. It's well loved.
Yeah,
you can tell that I took that instruction manual to the bowling alley every Saturday morning, and we looked through it. You know, the battery's dead on the cartridge. It's fine, but I mean, that is a specific copy that I have all these memories with, and just getting another copy of the game would never be the same.
What about you, Troy?
The most sentimental value connected to a game, it would have to be, I would say my copy of, like, I think Corey associates more sentimental value to specific copies than I do, but if any, I would have to say my Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
Really?
Okay. Because I mean, there's a number of reasons. I mean, for one, it was the first game I ever beat.
Okay.
I was too bad and dumb to beat any video games before then. You know, I played games, but I like Rescue Rangers somehow ended up being the first one that I actually finished. Like at one point, I thought that like beating a game was like something that like super crazy skilled people did. Like I didn't think that beating a game was something that just regular people did. I beat that and I'm like, whoa, I can do this. But more than that, like I sold my NES games to save up for an N64 because once I got the Super Nintendo, I kind of stopped playing NES games. And then like when I got the N64, I kept playing Super Nintendo games because I'm like, oh, this offers something different. Yeah. And then a couple years later, I was like, man, I missed a lot of stuff on the NES. And I got one again. But when I sold my NES stuff, I actually had like maybe 2 or 3 of my cousin's games. And before I sold everything, like I gave those games back to her. And for some reason, I also gave her my Rescue Rangers.
Okay.
And when their family was getting rid of all of their NES stuff, all those games came back to me. So my copy of Rescue Rangers is the only NES game I have that was my original copy.
Okay. All right.
So, I mean, I've got some value attached to the game. It's to the game, and also to that specific copy.
Okay, all right.
What about you?
Oh, geez, I'm trying to think. I mean, I have several games that have various different types of sentimental values. I suppose, as wacky as it sounds, Daytona USA.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, just because, like, you know, again, as noted.
The original Daytona, not the like the champion.
Yeah, the original. You know, just for a lot of like, you know, it was a perfect combination of, like I said, you know, I had a Saturn as my high school graduation present. It was one of the first launch games, and I liked that game a lot. And you know, I had friends in high school, but I had a lot of time to kill, like a lot of people in high school. And I lived near a military base, and they had Daytona USA in like the military base. I'm an Army brat, but I lived off base. And I remember taking a bus trip that was like an hour and a half each way just so I could play Daytona USA for like 20 minutes between the buses switching over and stuff like that. So I don't know, like things like that. Like, I have a lot of sentimental values. Like, like it reminds me of a specific time and place. It isn't so much important for me to have a physical copy of the game anymore, much like the Radiant Silvergun is an example, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, no, like it's weird. Yeah, it's like, again, as I'm moving, like, especially when you're in New York, you're trying to figure out what should I hold on to, what should I get rid of,
right?
And it's like, as long as I have the memories, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it was. I was kind of out of games when I first moved to New York, and I sold a whole bunch of stuff to Video Games New York that I really wish that I didn't, because they didn't give me very much money for them at the time, and
yeah,
I'll never forget that they gave me $8 for Ikaruga on the Dreamcast.
Well, Video Games New York, that's kind of how they do business, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's thinking back at it, like that's one of the ones I really want to rebuy. Even though I have the GameCube version, I want to have the Dreamcast version again someday. And right after I moved there, like this is probably the biggest regret I always talk about, and people in the chat already know this probably, is that I sold my copy of Snatcher for $80 right after I moved there, because I just needed the money.
Yeah.
And now it's like a $450 game, $500, maybe more.
And it's not that you want the value of that game; you just want that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But think of it this way: you enjoyed that game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Day one.
Yeah, I got day one before it was even like.
So you paid X amount for a game, and you got your money's worth in terms of enjoyment,
right?
Good memories and stuff like that. So you got to think of it that way, I suppose. So.
Yeah, and I definitely do.
Yeah. So, real quick, because you said greatest regret. One of my greatest regrets in video games is I remember being a kid around, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, and my local grocery store used to rent out video games, and this is during the Nintendo era. And I remember, like, the video section was close to the supermarket, the checkout line. And my dad was like paying for groceries. And there was oh my God, I haven't said this story in a while, so I might be messing up on details. But there was a kid who was returning Life Force for the Nintendo. And like the cashier at the video section was like, "I'm really sorry, but this game is late, and you have to pay a late fee of like $1.20." And I remember it was like this weird Charles Dickinson scene where the mother, they look like the most destitute family in the world, and the mother just looks at the child like, "You were late. You should have returned this. Now I have to pay $1.20." And she didn't say this, but it sounded like, now that $1.20 is going to prevent us from paying off the mortgage, and now we're going to be living on the streets. And the child just looks so forlorn, and the mother looks so disappointed. And my greatest regret is I wish I could have gone back and paid that late fee, because I think their lives were ruined by that incident. Maybe he turned to a life of crime or something. It's haunted me for so long. Like, oh my God, I could have changed the course of history and paid for this kid's Life Force, which is also a favorite game of mine. Yeah, anyway, so.
All right. Well,
on that note.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably won't have an episode. Won't be ready for Friday, surely.
Oh no! I mean, remember, we're not really targeting Fridays anymore. Anyway, we're just getting our episodes done when they're done. We're trying to do 2 a month, and they hit when they're ready. I'm working on the Switchers episode now. I'm hoping it won't be too crazy. I'm getting close to finishing the first draft of the script. I don't know exactly when I'll be able to shoot it, but by the second half of this week and through all next weekend, I'm going to be working on it like crazy for sure.
Yeah. There's a chance that we might be able to share with everybody this week what the kind of the super secret project we've been working on. So something might get announced this week.
Super secret project.
Yeah. We've been involved in a super secret thing.
Would we be able to release our episode before
Before it's announced.
No.
No. I mean, it's going to be announced. I think as soon as certain things are in place.
Okay.
It's going to be announced, and then it's going to get released. Probably, we'll see. I don't know when it's going to be released, but we hope to have an episode about that said thing to release side by side with it. Day one.
We just kind of fell into a cool opportunity where we got to find out about something very cool.
Again, because of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Because of the community in Cincinnati, Ohio, it's so nuts. We've kind of worked our way into doing a bit of an exclusive episode on something that people don't know is happening.
Can I guess what it is?
No, because if you guess, I don't want it because nobody knows about it. If you guess what it is, then
what are the random chances that he would guess what it is?
Yeah, what is the random chance that I would get this? Yes.
I don't know, but if he guessed it, then it's like it gets blown up from here. It'd be bad.
Can I type in the Skype chat what it is, and you tell me if I'm right or not?
Sure.
Okay. If this is all right.
No, it is not the Nintendo PlayStation.
No.
We're not doing anything. Although it would be awesome to do an episode how to get the best picture out of your Nintendo PlayStation.
That was my joke. I was gonna.
Do we even know if it's a one-chip system?
No, I mean that would be awesome, right? Like, I know they're going to be the Nintendo PlayStation is going to be at the Missouri GameCon that we're going to in August. So maybe we can mess with it there.
Did you guys see it at MagFest?
Actually, I didn't even go out of my way to see it.
We heard that it was there, but we didn't really make it.
It was on show. I mean, a lot of people got to kind of go to the private room to play it, but we're not big enough yet to do that kind of stuff.
It was underneath a plastic display in the museum room, and it was exciting. But then right next to it was the M2, the 3DO successor.
Yeah.
That was playable, and I found myself more excited for that than the Nintendo PlayStation. But anyway, so all right.
Adam Zay asked in the chat if we met up with the crazy CRT repairman while we were in LA.
No, we tried.
We tried, but he was unfortunately out of town at the time.
That's something we really want to do. We kind of hit some bad luck when we were there.
We might try to do it again. We might try.
Yeah. We really want to.
If we have reason to go to LA again, we'll hopefully be able to meet up with him.
The crazy CRT repairman.
It's this guy who repairs PVMs. Worked as a Sony tech for years, and now he repairs them PVMs and sells them on eBay. And he is, repairing CRTs is a dying art.
Yeah.
As the people who know how to do it are dying, and without any reason to pass the information on. So, I mean, we really wanted to meet with him to do it because that would have. Everyone is keeps on asking about the geometry episode, and we really wanted to do it with the involvement of somebody like him.
Not to. I mean, I know we're supposed to be wrapping this up, but you guys follow TNT Amusements, right?
TNT Amusements, no.
Seriously, you guys aren't. Try. Are you aware of TNT Amusements? TNT Amusement is basically it's a family-run business. It's based out of Pennsylvania. I discovered them through an infomercial that was a cult hit on late night television. So it's kind of like a showroom that finds old arcade machines and refurbishes them and sells them to the public. And they've been around for decades. And it's one of these things. It's one of the things where they were the business has been around since the 80s, and they were doing okay. But now because of this resurgence of old collectible, retro game enthusiasts, now they're doing gangbusters, and they have a YouTube channel where every day they produce a 30-minute long video of them repairing old arcade machines and
that's cool.
machines. You should check it out because they're all old. They're like dads. It's all a bunch of dads. It's dad humor where they're goofing around.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
Well,
you guys would love it.
maybe I mean, maybe when we go to too many games, like maybe if it's not too far from the Philadelphia area, maybe we could pay them a visit.
Yeah.
I'll pass along some contact information for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You guys would love it. So I'm surprised. Well, YouTube's a big world, so
It is.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I don't get in as deep into the internet as Corey does. Corey's usually the one that informs me of people doing cool things, like you, for example, because I'm always just like so overwhelmed trying to get so many things done that I'm just like I don't have time to scour the internet right now.
Yeah.
Corey, how did you find out about Bithead 1000? If you don't mind me asking.
I don't know. It may have been from you.
Oh, okay.
It may have been. Or it may have been. It was very close to the same time.
Yeah. I don't even remember how I came across him. He just popped up, and I was, and that reminds me, I just want to say, if I could just say one thing to the world at large, and it's related to what you guys are doing. It's so valuable when there is gameplay footage of games that do not have voiceovers, and I wish there was I just wish there was a YouTube option where you could turn off audio commentary or whatever. Because no offense, I mean, it's kind of annoying when I really need to look at footage of an obscure game for research purposes.
Right. I get it.
Yeah, and they're just guy hello YouTube, and they're making fun of something, or they say a dumb joke, and I'm
that was really Corey had started the B-roll channel longer ago, but it was like when I realized I was just thinking about it, and I was like,
how can we maximize this footage that we have?
Right. Well, but I was thinking when I personally search YouTube for a game, I'm usually curious what does this game look like? I just heard about this game. Does this game look any fun to play? Yeah. And I'm always find myself clicking on something like the long play for it because I know that that's going to just be gameplay with music and absolutely no commentary, but they don't always look that good. And obviously they've got this just huge archive that video game B-roll is never going to compete with, and that's not the goal to compete with that at all. But we thought, well, why, if people are searching for games and just want to watch, just get a context for what that game is like, well, let's provide some examples of that for some of the games we play, but in high quality from original hardware, and maybe some people will appreciate that. And it's just a nice thing we thought we could do, and we'll put out what we can when we can. And but I agree, it's kind of funny because in some ways I don't necessarily make the sorts of videos that I seek out on YouTube because I'm just looking for that vanilla gameplay a lot of the time. But I enjoy making the more produced video with a script and all that, and I enjoy watching other people do that. But when I'm just looking for information on a game, that is not that's personally how I like to send out that information with my own viewpoint in it, but I don't necessarily always want to watch it.
Well, I mean, you two are producing videos that is educational, very informative with a lot of technical info. So, people are going to your videos because they I want to know the best video output or video quality off a Game Boy. There's really no fussing around.
I always like it when we get messages from people. It's I have no interest in this, but I've watched this video 4 times.
It's fascinating. It's super fascinating. Yeah. So, and there's a general appreciation. There's no. We could talk about this all night, and it's getting late, so I don't.
Yeah, I do need to go to bed, unfortunately.
All right.
I actually have to get up and go work a little earlier than I normally do. So.
All right, so we will be back next week. We might have a fairly large guest with us next week too.
Oh yeah.
We'll see. You'll have to tune in. Everyone will have to tune in for that. Matt,
it's
thanks
Miyamoto. It's Miyamoto, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Matt, thanks so much for. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
It's a lot of fun,
You basically interviewed us.
Yeah.
I'm a reporter, so I'm sorry to, I'm curious about you too. So, but thanks for having me. Would love to do it again sometime in the future if you guys will have me. So,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good times.
Cool. So awesome.
All right, everybody. See you next week.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Bye.